Chapter 1524. Perhaps it was because the Immortal's Cave had just manifested above the desolate antiquity, and the space had not yet completely fused. Yi Shiwen, who had just entered, saw that the sky was full of space cracks, opening and closing, and it was incomparably terrifying. Once these opening and closing cracks got stuck, even a celestial realm expert would die. That was the mighty power of the space. As soon as he entered the world of the cave dwelling, Yi Shiwen felt a pressure crushing his body. This should be the restriction that Feng Qi had mentioned. Sure enough, the highest it could withstand was the power of the peak of the 6th level of the celestial realm. Once it exceeded this level, it would probably attract the attack of the restriction. Fortunately, his cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the celestial realm. Speaking of which, he was far from the level of the restriction of this cave dwelling, so he was not very concerned. However, Feng Qi, who was beside him, was very nervous. After confirming that there was no problem with the seal again, he was slightly relieved. After entering the cave dwelling, Feng Qi said, "Go around by yourself now. You might have a fortuitous encounter. I'll go and determine the location of that instrument first. I'll inform you when there's any news." "Okay." Yi Shiwen nodded. Feng Qi then turned around, stepped out of the sky full of golden light, and disappeared in front of Yi Shiwen. After leaving Feng Qi, Yi Shiwen immediately took off his mask and robe, restoring his identity. Yi Shiwen was about to fly away when suddenly, he felt a violent fluctuation in the sky. More than a dozen figures stepped on the air and came over. Yi Shiwen immediately used the restraining breath technique, escaped into the space, and watched quietly. He saw more than a dozen members of the Sea Clan land not far away from Yi Shiwen with water vapor filling the sky. These people were all wearing aqua blue scale armor and dressed like generals. They all exuded abnormal fluctuations of breath. Obviously, they had also come in after sealing their power. They must be giants above the 7th level of the celestial realm. In the Sea Clan, such people were also governors of a region. Because the Endless Sea region was too vast, several times wider than the ancient Barrens continent, it was completely impossible to properly manage. Therefore, these giants of the Sea Clan above the 7th level of the celestial realm were all great generals guarding a region, and they were governors of a region. Among them, the leader was none other than the Ocean Emperor, the most powerful person among the younger generation of the Sea Clan. The Ocean Emperor's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds during this period of time. There was a faint seal on his body that sealed his power, but even so, his cultivation was still at the peak of the 6th heaven of the celestial being realm, which was extremely terrifying. His strength alone was much stronger than those behind him. The Ocean Sovereign is truly impressive. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. The gap between him and the Ocean Emperor was huge back then. Unexpectedly, the gap didn't seem to have narrowed much after some time. While he was improving rapidly, the Ocean Emperor was also improving rapidly. It was even more shocking than him. If they were outside, Yi Shiwen might not be a match for the Ocean Emperor, but it was hard to say in here. We're clearly too late. It'll be bad if someone else gets the treasures first. A Sea Tribe expert behind the Ocean Emperor spoke up. Then we'll just snatch them all. Whoever dares to snatch them from me is courting death, the Ocean Emperor said indifferently. However, there are too many strange things in this cave residence. We must be careful. Yes. The Sea Tribe experts responded one after another. The Sea Tribe did not stay for long, and soon left one after another. Not waiting for Yi Shiwen to come out from the sky, more than a dozen figures mixed with rampant mochi quickly came over. They were vaguely staring at the Ocean Emperor's group. Is it the demon race? No, it's the demon-worshipping cult. Yi Shiwen carefully identified them. Although humans could also become demons after birth, the demonic chi of those demons was still different from those born into the demon race. Yi Shiwen had fought against the demon-worshipping cult and the demon race for many years, so he was very clear about these differences. In addition to the Sea Race group, and by Majiao group, there were also waves of forces that entered the Immortal's Cave one after another. There were all kinds of origins, but because this was the territory of the human race, it seemed that the human race was the most powerful force. Yi Shiwen only stayed for a while, and then disappeared into the sky. In the void, above the clouds, a figure about 27 or 28 years old was sitting on it. His hair was fluttering in the void, and he was extremely arrogant. If there were people from the Yi clan here, they would immediately recognize that this person was none other than the number one of the Yi clan's younger generation, Yi Kuang. However, it was widely rumored that he had broken through in seclusion, but now it seemed that his strength was far beyond the rumors. How interesting. A mere cave residence of an ancient powerhouse has attracted so many masters. It seems that it's definitely not simple. Yi Kuang sneered, and his eyes were cold as he looked at everyone disdainfully. But it doesn't matter. I must get the Qilin's heart. Whoever fights with me will die. Suddenly, there was a fluctuation in the void, and more than a dozen figures came on the spot. The person in the lead had an extraordinary bearing, and he stood with his hands behind his back. He was about 30 years old. Behind him, there was a man in white who was about the same age as him. He also stood with his hands behind his back, and he was extremely powerful. And behind them, there were more than a dozen tyrannical masters at the peak of the 6th level of the celestial realm. Zhegu Jingshua, Beishanju, you two are late, Yi Kuang said coldly. The two people in front of them were actually the top masters of the Jiagu clan and the Beishan clan, one of the top 10 royal clans of the 100 Clan Alliance. The young man with an extraordinary bearing, Zhegu Jing, glanced at Yi Kuang and said, "You came quite early. TSK. I didn't expect that your demon-suppressing city would actually cooperate with our 100 Clan Alliance. Didn't you look down on us the most? What's wrong with that? The mortal enemy of our demon-suppressing city is only the demon race. Apart from not compromising with the demon race, everything else can be discussed," Yi Kuang said disdainfully. "You want to cooperate with Zhegu Jingshua? Why did you invite me along?" Beishan Ju said, "Because we all have a common enemy, Yi Shiwen." Yi Kuang said, "Yi Shiwen, the Yi Shiwen who killed my cousin?" Zhegu Jingshua squinted his eyes and said, "That's right, it's him." Yi Kuang said, "That's a little interesting. Because of his matter, the entire clan is in a mess. If I can kill him, then I can also get a lot of rewards." "I'll do it," Zhegu Jingshua said. "What does that have to do with me?" Beishan Ju said, "Didn't your Beishan clan just lose a clan leader, causing your Beishan clan to lose face, but you can't find the murderer? I can tell you with 100% certainty that the one who killed him was Yi Shiwen." Yi Kuang said, "What? That trash was killed by Yi Shiwen?" Beishan Ju asked, "That piece of trash has really thrown away the face of our Beishan clan. My father was originally cultivating a peerless divine technique and was unable to split himself. He also didn't want others to seize his power, so he pushed this puppet out. Who would have thought that this piece of trash would actually be killed by someone? What a disgrace. If this news were to spread, I'm afraid our Beishan clan would not let the matter rest so easily with your Yi clan." Yi Kuang said disdainfully, "I said, that's Yi Shiwen's problem. What does it have to do with our Yi clan? We didn't instruct him to kill him. Besides, so what if he did? Do you dare to fight your way in? If you don't dare, then don't talk nonsense." "How arrogant, Yi Kuang. I've long heard of your arrogance. I didn't expect you to be so arrogant in front of me. I want to see what kind of ability you have to be so arrogant." Beishan Ju's face immediately fell. He was put on the spot by Yi Kuang's words and immediately became furious. Boom! A terrifying aura instantly overflowed from his body. A terrifying aura of the peak of the 6th heaven of the celestial realm instantly swept out. In the blink of an eye, he attacked Yi Kuang with his palm. His palm was like a mountain, crushing down on Yi Kuang. "Insignificant skill, and you dare to be arrogant in front of me," Yi Kuang sneered and pointed out in the void. Immediately, endless light swept out. Boom! With a deafening roar, his huge hand directly shattered the mountain range. "Ah!" Beishan Ju immediately screamed. His palm was dripping with blood, and there was a big hole. His expression was extremely ugly. Although it was not a big deal, and he did not use his full strength, Yi Kuang easily broke his attack. For him, it was equivalent to a great loss of face. "If you talk nonsense again, I'll kill all of you," Yi Kuang said coldly. Yi Kuang, aren't your words a bit too much? Moreover, do you think you can do it? Jegu Jingxuo finally spoke at this time. He said with a face full of dissatisfaction. These arrogant and unruly geniuses were all supreme geniuses in their respective forces. They had always been supreme in this world. When had they ever been threatened like this? Yi Kuang revealed a disdainful expression and said, "Can't do it? You can try." Beishan Ju's expression was unfriendly as he said, "Since you think you're so amazing, then why did you look for us? Don't say nonsense like he is also a member of the Yi clan and it's not convenient for you to act. Do you think we will believe such words? If you were really so loyal to the Yi clan, you wouldn't have looked for us. I naturally have my own things to do. I don't have time to waste on this," Yi Kuang said unceremoniously. Both of their expressions immediately darkened. "Your time is precious, but our time is trash? Are you doing it or not?" Yi Kuang's gaze was cold as he stared at them. "Yes, it's just a small effort." Beishan Ju was the first to speak. Chapter 15:25. I don't mind getting rid of a genius of your human clan. Since he was able to kill my cousin, he's obviously not that bad. It's best to kill him in the cradle. Jegu Jishua said it out loud in front of Yi Kuang. It was just that everyone was already very used to killing each other. If it wasn't for this cooperation, they would probably not be able to avoid killing each other when they met. I have to remind you that if you underestimate him, then you are very likely to die in his hands, Yi Kuang said lightly. How is that possible? Beishan Ju said disdainfully. No matter how strong he is, how can he be a match for me? Let me reveal a little more information to you. Yi Kuang's mouth had a somewhat disdainful smile. Our Yi clan's chief steward was killed by him. If you underestimate him, you will definitely suffer a great loss. If it was outside, it would be fine. But in this damned place, you will not be able to display your advantages to the fullest. If Beishan Ju really didn't take Yi Shiwen seriously before, then they wouldn't dare to be so relaxed now. Although they didn't know much about the chief steward of the Yi clan's patriarch's office, they still had basic common sense. He was probably an expert at the peak of the 6th heavenly layer of the sky-human realm. Yet, he was defeated by Yi Shiwen. Obviously, Yi Shiwen wasn't that simple. If they were outside, they might not take Yi Shiwen seriously. After all, the 6th heavenly layer of the sky-human realm was still not enough for them. They were much older than Yi Shiwen. Although they were still in the younger generation, they were several generations behind Yi Shiwen. If they still needed to be afraid of Yi Shiwen, then they would not feel that Yi Shiwen was too powerful, but that they were too weak. With the pride in their hearts, how could they possibly admit it? This damned environment was also a restriction for them. But on the other hand, if this cave residence did not have such a restriction, then it would not be their turn to be arrogant here. Those old guys at the 8th heaven of the sky realm, the 9th heaven of the sky realm, and even the peak heaven of the sky realm were the masters here. Although there were old things at the 7th and 8th level of celestial realm who sealed their cultivation to enter, there wasn't a single expert at the 9th level of celestial realm, not to mention celestial realm experts. It was because of the risk that they sealed their cultivation to enter. Even if they still had overwhelming battle prowess, there would always be some monsters in this world with abnormal battle prowess. Even they might fall here. They usually came in places that allowed them to display their full strength. Moreover, the harvest here might not be able to make them pay. If that's the case, then it's a little interesting. Beishan Ju's face showed a bit of excitement. Even though Yi Shiwen had defeated the chief steward of the imperial clan court, he still had confidence in himself. He was the only one in the world. Moreover, there was Jegu Jingxua with him. In addition, both sides had brought experts at the peak of the 6th heaven of the sky realm. If they still could not injure Yi Shiwen and kill him, then they should all die. I think so too. This is starting to make me a little excited. If he didn't have the strength to truss a chicken, I wouldn't have bothered to make a move. But now, after hearing what you said, I'm a little interested. Jegu Jingshua's face revealed a cruel excitement. But do you know where he is now? Yi Kuang shook his head. Are you playing with us? Suddenly, Beishan Ju was angry. Jegu Jingshua also looked at Yi Kuang with an unfriendly expression. He has been in closed-door training before, but before I came, I already sent someone to send a message to him. When the time comes, he will definitely appear, and you just need to find him. Yi Kuang said. Anyway, you just need to pay more attention. It won't hinder you from treasure hunting. Yi Kuang continued. Anyway, whether you do it or not is a matter of a word. If it doesn't work, then I will personally kill him. If it wasn't for the fact that I am afraid that ordinary people can't deal with this kid, I would not have cooperated with the two of you at all. Let's do it. This seems to be a little interesting. Beishan Zhu said. Count me in. I also want to meet this guy who killed my cousin Zhegu Jingshua said. Yi Shiwen was still unaware that danger was quietly approaching. For him, there were a lot of troubles in this cave mansion. Because the dimension where this cave mansion was located was fused with the main plane, the entire void was full of space cracks, exuding a terrifying aura. There were white bones everywhere on the ground. It seemed that there had been a fierce battle in a long time. Perhaps it was because of this that the owner of this cave mansion died, and this cave mansion was also lost in the endless dimension. Roar! A violent and ferocious roar came from the distance. It came from the thick fog, sweeping over from the sky. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. This place was certainly much more dangerous than he had imagined. He continued to move forward. Suddenly, a burst of fighting and shouting came from the front. Yi Shiwen didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but then he saw a familiar sword light. The sword light of the snow jade sword pierced through the sky, directly splitting the sky in half on the spot. Yi Shiwen immediately rushed over and saw that he was right. That person was Yi Qianqian, and beside her were Yi Shukong and Yi Qiao. At this time, the team formed by these three people was surrounded by a group of demon experts. Among them, there were many demons at the 6th level of the Heaven Realm, and there were also old antiques at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm and above who had sealed their cultivation. Their strength was extremely tyrannical. There were more than 10 demons at the peak of the 6th level of the Heaven Realm, which was enough to run rampant in this world. Among Yi Qiong and the other two, only Yi Qiong was already at the peak of the 6th level of the Heaven Realm, while Yi Shukong and Yi Qianqian had just entered the 6th level of the Heaven Realm. Only by relying on their own outstanding talent could they contend against experts at the peak of the 6th level of the Heaven Realm. But under the attacks of these 20-plus Devil Race experts, they were already showing signs of being unable to hold on. Even the demon experts received the news and came. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. He originally thought that the main force of the demon experts were besieging the heavenly court, so how could they spare people to explore this cave mansion? This was something he didn't expect. Although the demon clan had gathered more than half of their military strength and caught the human clan off guard, they had hesitated for many years before being suppressed by the human clan. Therefore, on the ancient Baron's continent, even if they included the demon-worshipping religion, they couldn't be compared to the human clan. If it wasn't for the other demon army at the crack of the demon realm, which delayed most of the human experts, the demon clan on the ancient Baron's continent would have been annihilated by the human clan as soon as they launched an attack. Therefore, he originally judged that the demon clan shouldn't have the spare strength to send more people. It should be known that experts at the 4th level of the Heaven Realm and above were all commanders in the demon army. Experts at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm were even more so, the main force of an area. It was meaningless for them to send less people, and even if they sent more people, they probably wouldn't have enough manpower. However, the current situation had caused him to make an obvious mistake in his judgment. Yi Shiwen immediately made a move without any hesitation. The 8 Treasures Universe cauldron grew bigger and bigger in the void. It expanded against the wind and fell like a small mountain. Ah! 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 Those demons screamed and were smashed into meat patties on the spot. Several demons who couldn't escape in time were smashed by Yi Shiwen on the spot. Yi Shiwen, it's Yi Shiwen. At this time, just when the 3 of them were in a bit of a predicament, they saw Yi Shiwen. For them, it was tantamount to seeing hope. With Yi Shiwen joining them, their combat power suddenly increased greatly. Go, kill this damn human. At this time, the leader of the demon clan was extremely angry. He directly roared and rushed toward Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen sneered, courting death. He directly grabbed one of the legs of the 8 Treasures Universe Cauldron with one hand. He lifted the 8 Treasures Universe Cauldron on the spot and directly smashed it toward the leader of the demon clan, who rushed over. Yi Shiwen's strength was so huge that a casual move was as fast as lightning. In an instant, it directly smashed down and smashed the leader of the demon clan. Bang! The leader of the demon clan was smashed on the spot. His whole body was immediately blasted away like a cannonball. His whole body suddenly disintegrated in the void, suffering from a terrifying force that was difficult to resist, causing him to disintegrate on the spot. The 3 of them looked at Yi Shiwen as if they had seen a ghost. They didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be so strong after not seeing him for a while. A demon at the peak of the 6th level of the celestial realm was blasted into pieces by him on the spot. This was a bit too sharp. It seemed that the rumor of him wreaking havoc in the Imperial Clan court was probably not false. Go! With Yi Shiwen's help, the 3 of them also became spirited, especially Yi Qiong, who suddenly fanned the iron fan in his hand, directly sweeping out a huge hurricane, directly trapping a demon in the void on the spot, and strangling it to death. Yi Qianqian was also invincible with the snow jade sword in her hand, directly freezing a demon on the spot. Yi Su's sword Qi was monstrous, like a stormy sea, also blocking a demon expert. Among these demons, there was no lack of old antiques who had sealed their own cultivation to come here. Dealing with ordinary 6th level of the celestial realm experts, it was absolutely not disadvantageous. However, they had to face these 3 abnormal geniuses, any one of whom was far more powerful than they were. In addition, there was also Yi Shiwen, the god of death, among them. He directly killed his way into these demon experts, holding the 8 Treasures Universe Cauldron in his hand, like an overlord lifting a cauldron with great strength. Those demons who were smashed by Yi Shiwen all died on the spot. Chapter 1526. With Yi Shiwen's cooperation, Yi Qianqian and the other 2 quickly slaughtered more than 20 devils, not letting a single one escape. Yi Shiwen, why are you here? I thought you would continue to hide inside. Yi Qiong said with a smile. Yi Shiwen smiled and was not annoyed. Although he said that he was in retreat, he really had the intention to hide. Aren't I here to hide? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Ha ha ha. Yi Qiong laughed and said, fortunately, I have your help this time. If not for you, I might have to use some of my trump cards. These devils are really annoying. Yi Shukong also looked at Yi Shiwen, and his eyes flashed with a bit of sadness. When he saw Yi Shiwen again, he thought that his strength could suppress Yi Shiwen. Who knew? Through the battle just now, Yi Shiwen was still above him. Although the gap had not been pulled apart for him, this was already an extremely depressing thing. However, this kind of sadness only lasted for a moment. Soon, he adjusted himself, but there was a bit of determination in his eyes. It seemed that he had to do that thing. Although he was the son of God and had the bloodline of God, there were too many peerless geniuses in this world, and bloodline was not the only criterion to determine whether a genius was or not. What's more, many of the current big figures were not so outstanding at all in the past. It could be seen that talent and bloodline were not the only criteria to determine a person's final achievement. He had surpassed many tyrannical geniuses one after another along with his cultivation. However, Yi Shiwen had suppressed him from beginning to end. This had dispelled the little bit of complacency in his heart. It had vanished into thin air. Having a good opponent was often a good medicine to stimulate people's progress. When I came, I also saw the masters of Baimajia sneaking in. It seems that the devil race is also planning to do something big here. Yi Shiwen said with squinted eyes. The lackeys of Baimajia are also here? Then I'm afraid this matter isn't so simple. Yi Qiong said with squinted eyes. But it's good that you are here. Then I have a lot more confidence this time. Why did you come this time? Yi Shiwen asked. I've received news that there might be a wind Qilin beast in this expert's cave. I cultivate a wind attribute cultivation method. If I can swallow the Qilin heart of the wind Qilin beast, I will be able to advance to another level immediately. Yi Qiong said, at that time, I can really compete with Yi Kuang, and even become stronger than him. Yi Qiong said, At that time, I can really compete with Yi Kuang and even become stronger than him. To him, Yi Kuang was a great enemy. Especially 2 years later, during the Imperial Court contest for the top 100, Yi Kuang could pose a fatal threat to him. Yi Shiwen would not give up anything that could hurt Yi Kuang. But now it seems that the situation is more complicated than I thought. Even the demons are involved, Yi Qiong said, Qilin's heart. So, the Sea Emperor of the Sea race has also come, and his target seems to be that Qilin's heart. Yi Shiwen thought for a moment, and said as if he had thought of something. But now it seems that the situation is more complicated than I thought. Even the devil race is involved, Yi Qiong said. Yi Qiong said with a sigh, nowadays, the young people of your generation are getting more and more powerful. If this goes on, there will be no place for us old people. Seeing Yi Qiong pretending to be distressed, Yi Shiwen and the other two couldn't help but laugh. Based on his age and the number of years he might live in the future, if converted into an ordinary person's age, he was almost equivalent to a teenager. He wasn't even 20 years old, but he was already beginning to feel that he was an old man. Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Qiong with a funny look. He did not know that the famous 5 lords of the Yi family had such a cute side. Yes, old people should rest at home. Why do they come out? Aren't they just adding to the burden of us young people? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. You little brat. Yi Qiong was annoyed by Yi Shiwen's words. But now that you mention it, it seems that I'm not the only one who covets the Qilin's heart. Don't worry, we will help you. That Ocean Emperor, I have long wanted to beat him up. If it wasn't for Xiao Ye last time, we might have been killed by him, Yi Shiwen said coldly. The resentment in his heart was not reduced at all. Last time on the Wind King planet, the Ocean Sovereign wanted to interfere in their matters. If Li Ye hadn't intervened at the last moment, the entire Yi family's team would have been annihilated, let alone him. He had wanted to fight the Ocean Emperor for a long time. If it was outside, his strength might not be comparable to the Ocean Emperor's, and he would have to be cautious. But in this cave residence, he had the opportunity to stand on the same level as the Ocean Emperor. It's good that you have the intention. Let's hurry to the central cave residence. All the good stuff is there, and the Qilin's heart that I want is also there. I thought that I was the only one who coveted the Qilin's heart, but now it seems that I'm not the only one. Whatever, I can only try my best. If I can get the Qilin's heart, then I still have a chance in the competition for the top 100 rankings in a few years. Otherwise, I'm destined to be the one to accompany the prince. Yi Shiwen and the others nodded one after another. How could they not know that although they were considered as the best among the younger generation, but in the Imperial Court struggle, which represented the highest level of competition, there were still a lot of tyrannical existences that were stronger than them. Although their strength was definitely not at the bottom, but with their pride, how could they be willing to become the foil for others like this? Even in this kind of Imperial Court contest, to many people, being able to enter the top 100 was already an unparalleled glory. To those who had entered the top 100, if they had the chance, who would be willing to play the role of accompanying the Crown Prince to study? Yi Qiong wasn't the only one who said this. Yi Shukong, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shiwen were also the same. In terms of age, Yi Shiwen and the others were far younger than the average age of these people. Logically speaking, they could wait until the next royal court competition. At that time, with their talent, if they were at the same age as everyone else, they would definitely be the most dazzling people. They might even have a chance to be the first. Even so, they were not willing to lose to anyone. Since the 4 of them had already decided to help Yi Qiong obtain the Qilin's heart, there was no hesitation. On the spot, they immediately rushed towards the central direction of the cave residence. However, they didn't go far. Suddenly, they saw a field of corpses in front of them. A large number of demon and human experts were lying dead in the wilderness in front of them. Their faces suddenly turned ugly because they recognized the identity of the human experts in front of them. It was the symbol of the demon-suppressing city. Although the relationship between the demon-suppressing city and them was not very good, they also came here on behalf of the Yi family. Unexpectedly, they were intercepted here by these demon experts. Moreover, looking at the traces of the battle, which extended all the way to the void, it was obvious that the battle was far from over. How audacious! These devils are really audacious, Yi Qiong said with an ugly face. Although he and the demon-suppressing city were not on good terms, it had not risen to the level of a life-and-death enemy like Yi Shiwen. Moreover, the most important thing was that they had also been ambushed before. If Yi Shiwen had not appeared, they might have been forced to use some of their trump cards, which was absolutely not what he wanted. It seems that the demon clan ambushed far more than just our family. So, the demon clan's plan is very big, even bigger than we thought. Yi Shiwen glanced at the scene and said, "None of the three proposed to rescue the people of the demon-suppressing city. Because if they did so, where would Yi Shiwen be? Even if they really rescued the people of the demon-suppressing city, there might be a big battle between them and Yi Shiwen. Moreover, looking at the scene, it seemed that they were not at a disadvantage. Both the demon-suppressing city and the demon experts had casualties. If the demon-suppressing city is here, Yi Kuang might also be here," Yi Qianqian said, then glanced at Yi Shiwen, a little worried. If Yi Kuang was also here, then there would definitely be a conflict between them. "Don't worry, if he dares to cause trouble for me, then I will beat him until he cries in rhythm. I will let him know why the flowers are so red." Yi Shiwen grinned and touched Yi Qianqian's head, looking very intimate. This made Yi Qiong, who was next to him, a little stunned. Although he hadn't spent much time with Yi Qianqian, he was very clear about her personality. She was cold and aloof. Although she wasn't the iceberg type, her arrogance was not inferior to anyone. At this time, she actually didn't refuse Yi Shiwen's intimacy. This made him feel that his IQ wasn't enough to make sense of it. On the contrary, Yi Shukong next to him was very used to this, so he did not show any strange behavior. As the three flew along, they saw many corpses of the demon clan and experts of various races along the way. It seemed that the demon clan had ambushed many experts of various races along the way. It could be said that there were victories and defeats on both sides. There were some people like Yi Shiwen who won and left the demon clan behind. In the end, there were also people who were completely annihilated, leaving only scattered corpses, most of which were devoured by the demon clan. There were also people who suffered losses, and in the end, no one could do anything to the other. Wait a minute. When the four of them arrived at the mountain where the cave residence was located, Yi Shiwen suddenly felt a faintly discernible demon energy in the air. Ordinary people would not be able to feel it at all, but Yi Shiwen was extremely sensitive to auras, so he almost immediately felt it. Chapter 15:27. The other three immediately stopped and looked at Yi Shiwen. "There might be demons lying in ambush here," Yi Shiwen said. "Demons?" Everyone's hearts suddenly tightened. If the demons had been a relatively illusory symbol before, they had to pay attention to the large-scale invasion of the demon race, especially when they had just been ambushed by the demons. How could they not be careful? "If that's the case, let's wait and see," Yi Qiong said. Since there were more than one or two people interested in the Qilin's heart, they would wait and see. Everyone had this kind of patience, just like a hunter patiently hunting his prey. There might be a lot of masters coming this time. When it's chaotic later, you should act according to the situation. Don't be rash. If you can't do it, give up the Qilin's heart. We can't afford to lose anything," Yi Qiong said. These were all the top young masters of the Yi family. They couldn't afford to lose any of them. Losing even one of them would be a great loss for the Yi family. This time, the demons have joined forces with the masters of the demon-worshipping cult. They must have some ulterior motives. They can't be here for a spring outing. We have to be careful, Yi Shiwen said after thinking for a while. The three of them nodded and began to use their divine senses to observe their surroundings. Very soon, they discovered that in the depths of the void, there were some obscure auras hiding. Clearly, they had also discovered the traces of the devil race, but at this time, they were unwilling to take the lead to reveal themselves. No one was a fool. At this time, whoever took the lead might be attacked by the demons. In the depths of the void, Yi Shiwen's divine senses also found the Ocean Emperor's group. Compared to the beginning, they had lost a lot of people. They had probably also been ambushed by the demons. In the void, The Ocean Emperor stood with her hands behind her back. Her body was as straight as a spear. She was like a dragon or a tiger, walking with astonishing strength. Apart from the Ocean Emperor, Yi Shiwen had also discovered two extremely powerful auras that were vaguely superior to everyone else. Even the old fogies who had sealed their powers weren't as powerful as them. Their powerful auras fused in the void, creating a shocking scene. Those two are Jegu Jingshuo and Bei Shanju. Compared to Yi Shiwen, Yi Qiong knew much more about these people. They are the peerless geniuses of the Jiagu clan and the Northern Mountain clan. In terms of fame, they are no less than me and Yi Kuang. Why are they here? Moreover, they have joined forces. Yi Qiong was slightly surprised. All right, both of them had some grudges against him. Yi Shiwen immediately reacted. Whether it was the Northern Mountain clan or the Jiagu clan, his relationship with them would not be good. At the same time, they also felt several divine senses sweeping in their direction. Obviously, they had attracted their attention when they had come over just now. Yi Shiwen's figure slightly swayed and merged into the void to avoid the scanning of these divine senses. They only saw Yi Qiong and the others, but just Yi Qiong alone was enough to make them very afraid of them. Yi Kuang. I can feel Yi Kuang's aura. It can't be wrong. Yi Qiong suddenly opened his eyes and said. He had actually sensed Yi Kuang's aura with his divine senses. His expression began to become serious. Although they could be ranked among the top 5, in fact, Yi Kuang had always been above everyone else. East, south, west, north, and south, the middle was the most respected. The fact that he could sit firmly in the position of the Middle Lord was enough to show how powerful and terrifying his strength was. For Yi Qiong, even if he obtained the Qilin's heart, he would only be able to compete with Yi Kuang. If the Qilin's heart fell into Yi Kuang's hands, it would be tantamount to a disaster for Yi Qiong. Yi Shiwen followed the direction Yi Qiong pointed and scanned it with his divine senses. Sure enough, he found that in the void, there was an extremely tyrannical figure sitting cross-legged. He was sitting like a pine tree, and there was a faint sound of dragons and tigers roaring. A sense of fatal threat rushed towards him. He was extremely powerful. He was probably a bit more powerful than the Ocean Emperor just now. Yi Shiwen was secretly speechless. He didn't expect Yi Kuang to be so powerful. This was the first time he had met Yi Kuang. Before this, he had only heard of his name, but had never seen him. This was the first time he had met Yi Kuang under such circumstances. If it had been outside, Yi Shiwen's strength might not have been enough. Moreover, Yi Shiwen knew very well that he had secretly interrupted Yi Kuang's adventure. The abomination that should have fallen into Yi Kuang's hands was now in his hands. He had originally wanted to hinder Yi Kuang's development, but now it seemed that it didn't have much of an effect. Yi Kuang had another adventure, and his cultivation progressed rapidly, steadily surpassing Yi Qiong and the others. Not to mention Yi Shiwen, Yi Shukong, and other rising stars. Compared to him now, there was still a big gap. Fortunately, they were still in the plane of this cave residence. To a certain extent, both sides were standing on the same starting line. If outsiders knew that Yi Shiwen was actually plotting against the famous Zhong Batian of the Yi family, they would probably not believe it. Perhaps some people would even think that Yi Shiwen was overestimating himself. But for Yi Shiwen, there was no other way. The conflict between him and the demon-suppressing city had reached a point where it was either one of them dying or the other. If he didn't want to die in the wilderness one day, then he could only fight to the death. His aura is stronger than before. If we weren't opponents for many years, it would be difficult for me to even detect his traces, Yi Qiong said with a slightly cold expression. His desire for the Qilin's heart became even stronger. If this continued, the gap between them would probably be further widened. Although the strongest person might not necessarily be able to seize the throne in the battle for the Yi family's head, there was no doubt that the tyrannical person would also have an advantage in the process of the battle. In addition to these top masters, Yi Shiwen also found many old antiques who had sealed their own cultivation to enter. Some belonged to major forces, and some were old antique masters among the individual cultivators. There were people from the Human Clan, the Demon Clan, the 100 Clan Alliance, and even the Sea Clan. Whoosh! In the void, an undetectable light flashed, cutting through the void, and turned into the shape of a communication talisman in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen directly submerged the communication talisman into his body, and a message came. It was none other than Feng Qi. Yi Shiwen, I have received accurate information that the instrument is in the Central Expert Cave residence. I have already arrived. Come quickly. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. It seemed that Feng Qi still did not know that he had arrived. It seemed that he had not been exposed yet. Without waiting for him to think too much, the air in the void suddenly became chaotic. Waves of powerful energy attacked from the sky, and the surrounding air almost instantly solidified. It was suffocating, making it hard for people to breathe. Then it was squeezed inwards crazily. Almost in an instant, the Jin Yuan in Yi Shiwen's body was forced to automatically appear to protect himself. Yi Qiong and the others also automatically appeared to protect themselves with Gang Qi. Then, a roar that sounded like a lion or an elephant came from the huge cave residence. Then, a huge behemoth like a small mountain appeared in an instant, and a terrifying aura pressed down on everyone's bodies. An extremely frightening fierce beast revealed its figure in the air. It was a Qilin, with a head like a dragon, a pair of horns on its head, and a body covered with cyan scales. It had a deer's body and a dragon's tail. A deafening roar shook the world. The horrifying sound waves instantly swept out in all directions. Some of the weaker warriors were forced out of their hiding places by the Qi waves and were sent flying on the spot. It's here, the information is right. There really is a Qilin, and it is not a Qilin beast, but a real Qilin. Yi Qiong's eyes lit up as he looked at the Qilin in front of him. Even Yi Shiwen and the others were staring blankly at it. This wasn't a Qilin subspecies, but a genuine pure-blooded Qilin. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air when they saw it. In the distant past, the Qilin had once fought with the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan for the right to rule the world. Later on, even in the mythological era, it was said that the Qilin was the mount of the gods. Only the gods could subdue a powerful Qilin as their mount. And the owner of this cave residence actually subdued a Qilin to guard his cave residence. One could imagine how powerful the owner was when he was alive. Different from humans, Qilin beasts were a legendary long-lived race. Living for more than 10,000 years was only a basic rule, and they even had some special methods to live forever. No one knew how many years this cave residence had been in the endless dimension, but this Qilin was still alive. Countless eyes instantly stared at this Qilin, but no one dared to act rashly, because this Qilin's strength was really terrifying. In terms of strength, it had probably reached the peak of the ninth heaven of the celestial realm, and only half a step away from the celestial realm. Compared to the people who could not display their full strength, there was no doubt that it was many times more tyrannical. Yi Shiwen looked around. If Feng Qi had already arrived here, then didn't it mean that the Masters of Xiantian Alliance had also arrived? Yi Shiwen could not help but be vigilant. To him, these Masters of Xiantian Alliance were simply like poisonous snakes hiding in the shadows, and could come out to bite him at any time. However, after scanning the area with his divine telekinesis, he still couldn't find any experts from the Xiantian Alliance. Hence, he could only give up. Obviously, these experts from the Xiantian Alliance had their own ways to avoid detection. As God's messengers, it wasn't surprising that they had some godly techniques. Attack! Chapter 1528. Do it! With a loud demonic roar, a huge formation was formed in the air. Obviously, it had been set up long ago, waiting for this wind Qilin to fall into the trap. In the void, hundreds of demonic shadows of the demon race appeared in an instant. Looking over, they were all experts of the celestial realm. Although not all of them were terrifying experts of the sixth heavens of the celestial realm, with such a large number, even if an ordinary sixth heavens of the celestial realm appeared, it would still be a dead end. This formation also completely covered the entire entrance of the cave, completely looking like it was taking everything for itself. How generous! Yi Shiwen and the others could not help but be secretly speechless. This demon race could not be said to be not generous. With so many demons setting up a formation, even they could not rush in at all. In the situation where the demon race is besieging the royal court, they can still mobilize so many people. Obviously, the strength they have hidden for so many years has far exceeded our initial estimation. Yi Qiong said with a solemn expression. The stronger the demon race was, the worse it was for the human race. Isn't it because the other races intend to watch from the sidelines, waiting for us and the demon race to be mutually wounded before they plan to make a move? Anyway, it has nothing to do with them, so they naturally don't care, Yi Shukong said coldly. Everyone understood the plans of the demon race, the alliance of 100 races, and the sea race very well, so they naturally knew what they were planning. However, there was no way to do it even if they knew. Now, the demon race seemed to only want to defeat the human race one by one first, so they only attacked the other races carefully, not even moving. And the other races also used this excuse to refuse to make a move, so the current situation became that the human race was fighting alone. Obviously, it's too easy for them to think. How powerful is the demon race? Back then, all the races joined forces to finally drive the demon race out. If the human race is destroyed by the demon race, do they think they can survive? Yi Qianqian also said coldly. It's not that they don't understand this, but they still think that when we fight to the death, we can severely injure the demon race. At that time, they can almost effortlessly use the demon race to destroy us, and at the same time, use us to injure the demon race. At that time, can the injured demon race still be their opponent? In the end, the biggest possibility is that they will be the fishermen who reap the benefits. Who wouldn't want such a good thing? Unfortunately, we don't know whether they have such a good mouth or not. Can they break the big teeth of the devil race at the last moment? Yishuan said. Now that the demon race's invasion was imminent and chaos was about to begin, the various races on the ancient Baron's continent were still scheming and plotting against each other. Even within the human race, there was still a lot of internal strife. This was not the human race deep-rooted nature, but the deep-rooted nature of all intelligent creatures. As long as there was wisdom, they would inevitably plan for themselves. It was just an innate instinct. Roar! This wind Qilin seemed to be enraged by the devil race. It opened its bloody mouth and spat out a huge wind blade. Even the void was cut open in an instant. It was extremely terrifying. In an instant, it disappeared in the chaos. Then, it appeared again in an instant, directly blasting in front of an expert of the fifth heaven of the celestial realm from the devil race. Ah! The demon race's fifth heavenly level heaven realm expert let out a mournful scream. His entire body was sliced in half by the wind blade on the spot. Demon blood splattered in the sky. Everyone be careful. Don't get too close to this wind Qilin. At this time, in the void, a tyrannical figure appeared. It was a great demon, and his aura was incomparably tyrannical. His face carried a domineering aura, and a pair of fleshy wings on his back were constantly flapping. The void around him was constantly bending and twisting along with his movements. All the devils couldn't help but lower their heads when they saw this great demon. This was a majesty of the great demon race, and also the person in charge of the devil race's team this time. After the surprise attack of this wind Qilin, these devils tightened their encirclement around the wind Qilin. The formation became smaller and smaller, but its power became stronger and stronger. This wind Qilin was constantly rushing and killing. It was incomparably terrifying. This wind Qilin's cultivation was approaching the 9th heavenly level heaven realm. Obviously, it was an adult, pure-blooded Qilin, and not a Qilin beast with ordinary bloodline. Even among the experts of the 9th heavenly level heaven realm, this Qilin beast was an extremely difficult existence to deal with. Ordinary experts of the 9th heavenly level heaven realm would not be a match for it, and it was comparable to the majesty of the heaven's pride of various races. Moreover, in such an environment in this cave mansion, even those old antiques with profound cultivation would have to seal their own cultivation to enter. Even if they released their cultivation, they would not be a match for this wind Qilin. There was no doubt about this, because the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Or perhaps the two sides were simply not opponents of the same level. Fortunately, these devils had used a formation to expand their strength and trapped the wind Sheelan. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, they would not be a match for this wind Sheelan even if they joined forces. This shocking formation was like a huge cage, trapping the wind Sheelan inside. Boom! 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 The wind Sheelan crazily attacked, and terrifying explosions rang out, turning into mushroom clouds that rose into the sky. However, there was no way to break this formation. These devils had clearly come prepared, so how could they let this wind Sheelan escape? Although the majority of these devils' strength was used to deal with this wind Sheelan, there were still hundreds of experts among them, like tigers eyeing their prey in the periphery, closely watching the possible prey that might appear. Today, we have already taken down this place. You'd better leave quickly, or else my army will come and wipe you all out. The Greater Devil Race's Royal Highness coldly glanced at the people in the void who had not yet appeared. Obviously, he was also very clear about the people lying in ambush at the side. He was also very clear about their intention to profit from the fight. A disdainful smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. If the mantis wanted to stalk the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, then it would have to depend on whether these orioles had such a good appetite. Moreover, he believed that he was not a mantis, but a hunter. No matter how arrogant the oriole was, could it beat the hunter? Arrogant, and despotic. This is the territory of our human race, and he actually dared to ask us to scram. He must be crazy. That's right, he is alone, and he actually dared to provoke so many of us. The words of the Greater Devil Race's Royal Highness were like a pot of boiling oil that was poured into a flame. The various forces geniuses, who were originally extremely unhappy because of the deterrence of the Devil Race, were instantly enraged. This Greater Devil Race's Royal Highness was too arrogant. They were just worried about the large number of Devil Clansmen, and had laid down a matrix that was difficult to break through. They weren't afraid of the Devil Race. Especially, the experts of the human race who had arrived were even more hostile. They broke through the void and directly looked at the Greater Devil Race's Royal Highness. They wished that they could use their gazes to hack him into pieces. The Greater Devil Race's Royal Highness merely smiled contemptuously in the face of these gazes. This was the absolute confidence of a powerhouse. These people couldn't do anything to him, let alone hundreds of experts of the Devil Race. So, who would dare to be presumptuous? Everyone was gnashing their teeth in hatred, but no one dared to step forward. They weren't afraid of this Greater Devil Race's Royal Highness. Some of the top experts would even dare to move in the midst of an army of 10,000. However, they didn't want to stand out. Everyone understood the principle of shooting the bird that stands out. They were also very clear about it. Suddenly, an undetectable ray of light fell into Yi Shiwen's hand. It was another message sent by Feng Qi using the divine technique. I have already entered the cave residence. The people of Xiantian Alliance have already arrived. You should hurry up and come in. Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Qiong and the others beside him. It seemed that he had to find a way to break in. His identity as a divine emissary must not be exposed. However, he had to break in. Perhaps it would be a bit difficult. Even if the Devil Race had sealed the entrance with a matrix, he wasn't worried. He would still dare to rush in even if there were thousands of troops in front of him. There's so many people here. Don't tell me that no one dares to touch the Devil Race's tiger, but... At this time, a powerful sound wave swept across the sky like a tidal wave. Then, a powerful figure descended from the sky. It was a man in his 30s. He looked extraordinary. He was dressed in a white robe, and a burst of white waves appeared in the sky. He looked very powerful, and there was a disdainful smile on his face. As soon as this man appeared, the people in the void suddenly burst into an uproar. Mother Asterisk Kerr, they were being ridiculed again. Was this man a book? Soon, a sharp-eyed expert of the Devil Race recognized this man. That's the Prince of Yao Zhao. Why is he here? But it's possible. He likes to disguise himself as a human and wander around the human territory. It's not surprising that he's here. Oh, it's him. Yi Qiong was stunned, and then said with a look of realization. Why do you know him? Yi Shiwen asked. Kind of. I've heard that there is such a genius in the devil race. Since his debut, he likes to disguise himself as a human and wander around the human territory. He has also appeared to challenge many geniuses and experts of our race. In addition, he is a prince of the 10 great demon kings of the devil race. It can be said that he is very noble. Yi Qiong said. Yi Shiwen understood. There was a big difference between the devil race and the human race. The true rulers of the devil race were the 10 great demon kings and the 72 demon marshals. Each of them was an earth-shattering powerhouse. He was also the pillar of the entire demon race, a supreme expert. Chapter 15:29. Yao Zhao, how dare you meddle in my business? I think you must be tired of living. The great demon clan's royal highness looked at Yao Zhao coldly and said, Why can't I meddle in your business? Besides, it's not just your business anymore. Yao Zhao said indifferently. At this time, Yi Shiwen received a new message from Feng Qi. There were no other words, just 2 words. Come quickly. From these 2 words, Yi Shiwen could feel Feng Qi's urgency. He didn't care so much and directly said to Yi Qiong, Senior brother, I must go in immediately. Wait for me to come out, then I will help you kill this Wind Kirin. Yi Qiong looked at Yi Shiwen in surprise. He didn't know what Yi Shiwen wanted to do, but he also knew that Yi Shiwen was not a reckless person. At this time, there must be a reason. Yi Qiong nodded. Anyway, he had no intention of letting Yi Shiwen join in. Without waiting for him to say anything, Yi Shiwen had already turned into a ray of light and directly rushed into the cave residence of the powerhouse. The cave entrance had already been wrapped up by a powerful formation, and Yi Shiwen was like a huge meteorite, fiercely smashing into the formation, setting off endless waves of demon energy. Courting death. The great demon clan's royal highness was suddenly furious. This person dared to take advantage of the time when he was talking to attack the formation. For him, it was simply a provocation. Yi Shiwen was like a cannonball. He directly pierced through this huge matrix and rushed inside. Behind him, a monstrous demonic hand directly grabbed him. It directly clawed towards Yi Shiwen's head. Yi Shiwen directly turned around and backhanded his sword. A huge sword directly cut the void, blasting out with a loud bang. Boom! A huge roar and a huge explosion suddenly burst out. The huge explosion of the aftermath of the huge explosion shook the entire formation violently. The power of 2 experts at the peak of the 6th level of the celestial realm swept out. The strength was unimaginable. Yi Shiwen also took this opportunity to glide a distance towards the depths of the formation. Damn it, stop him for me! The Great Fiend Clan's highness finally couldn't help but shout. At this time, the remaining devils in the array formation also rushed towards Yi Shiwen one after another. An expert of the 4th heavenly layer of Heaven Realm was the fastest, and in an instant, he had already arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. Humph, you're courting death. Yi Shiwen coldly snorted, and the sword intention in his hand instantly skyrocketed, transforming into sword shadows that filled the sky. Burial sword. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Yi Shiwen's sword directly pierced through these devils who had rushed over. Although their strength was not bad, they were far inferior to Yi Shiwen. They were not his opponents at all. They were directly killed by him on the spot, and their bodies exploded on the spot in the void. These people couldn't even stop the footsteps of Yi Shiwen. Boom! Yi Shiwen once again brandished his sword and cut a huge gap in the Zhen method with a loud bang. This Zhen method was mainly used to trap the Wind Qilin, so it was actually a weak point in the cave. Yi Shiwen didn't care about the Wind Qilin on the other side. It was actually a good thing that the devil race could stall this Wind Qilin. After all, this was an adult Qilin of the 9th heavenly layer of Heaven Realm. Moreover, it was a pure-blooded Qilin. In fact, if it wasn't for the demon clan holding off this Wind Qilin, everyone present would have fled. Even Yi Qiong, who came prepared, would have a headache facing this Wind Qilin that had already gone berserk. After cutting a huge gap, Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate and directly rushed into the hole while treading on the light. Bastard, damn it, damn it. The Great Fiend Clan's Highness didn't expect Yi Shiwen's movements to be so fast, and his strength was actually so strong. Now it was impossible for him to catch up, and he could only watch as Yi Shiwen blasted a big hole in the formation. It seems that I don't have to stand out. Yao Zhao laughed heartily and said boldly, "That is Yi Shiwen." Yi Kuang almost recognized Yi Shiwen at first glance. After all, he had also seen Yi Shiwen's portrait. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was a character that he was quite afraid of. How could he not be afraid? He almost recognized Yi Shiwen immediately. He is Yi Shiwen? In the distance, Zhegu Zhao looked at the disappearing figure and said, "Yes, it is him. I won't mistake him." Yi Kuang said, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill this kid." Beishan Ju said coldly. As he spoke, Beishan Ju had already taken the lead to attack. He turned into a stream of light on the spot and chased after Yi Shiwen's disappearing figure in the hole. Zhegu Jingshuo only waited for a little while and also rushed over with the experts of the Zhegu clan. Yi Kuang looked at the figures of the two rushing out and then looked at the Wind Qilin. He still did not move. He was also determined to obtain the Wind Qilin. The reason was not that he desired the Qilin's heart so much. The only reason was that he had obtained Yi Qiong's heart from a certain channel. Now, he needed the Qilin's heart to improve. He and Yi Qiong had been fighting fiercely for many years, but he had never been able to shake off Yi Qiong. However, if he could snatch the Qilin's heart, then Yi Qiong would never be able to keep up with him. A fortuitous encounter might not be a big deal, but the consequences of the interruption of Yi Qiong's luck would be serious. Yi Qiong would never be able to catch up with him again. Both sides had been entangled for so many years, and it was time to end it. He did not want this kind of competition and contest to continue for the next 100 years, or even the next few hundred years. Yi Shiwen had taken the lead. So, the experts behind him also couldn't bear it any longer. Not everyone had come for this Wind Qilin. In other words, not everyone could handle this terrifying, ominous beast. They came for the hidden depths of this powerhouse's cave residence. No one had entered before, so they were not in a hurry. Now that they saw Yi Shiwen rushing in first, how could they not be anxious? In addition to Zhegu Jingshuo and Beishan Ju, Yao Zhao, who bore the brunt of the attack, directly rushed in. Then, Ocean Emperor and some hidden old antiques also rushed in. The devils who were in charge of blocking the attack simply couldn't stop the attack of these top experts. A huge devil army was a deadly threat to any family, but when these people joined hands to attack, the threat of the devils was negligible. Damn it, damn it. At this time, the Great Demon Clan's Highness was extremely angry, but there was no way to stop these experts. He might be able to stop one or two of them, but there was no way to stop all of them. He could only watch helplessly as they swaggered off. Originally, he planned to frighten everyone so that he could monopolize the benefits of the experts, who knew that it would be ruined by that brat right from the start. Originally, when the demonic attack was unleashed, he wasn't too worried. As long as the demonic attack was blocked, then the others wouldn't act rashly. Who knew that the human brat would suddenly make a move? He wasn't prepared at all, and the entire formation was pierced through. This revealed their weakness, and then those people took advantage of it to attack. He gritted his teeth in hatred and wanted to kill that guy. At this time, he could not care so much and directly rushed into the powerhouse's cave with a few experts. As for the trapped Wind Qilin, he could not care about it for the time being. Anyway, he believed that no one would dare to touch this formation. Once the Wind Qilin was released, then it might really be a disaster. Not to mention that the people behind him had caught up one after another. Yi Shiwen directly rushed into the powerhouse's cave. As soon as he entered, he suddenly felt that it was an eye-opener. The style of this cave was also ancient, but it was mixed with a lot of arrays. Each array absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy. Perhaps it was because many people didn't come here to cultivate, but the spiritual energy inside was also abnormally rich. The entire cave was extremely spacious. It was like a huge maze that extended in all directions. However, it was not a problem for Yi Shiwen. His figure was like a lightning bolt and directly rushed into a secret room on the spot. After breaking the defensive formation, only to see a mountain of spirit crystals condensed into a spirit crystal mineral vein, occupying an extremely wide area. This secret room had also been transformed into a dimensional space. It did not look very big from the outside, but in fact it was really wide and boundless. A small spirit crystal mineral vein was equivalent to the collection of tens of billions of spirit crystals. One could imagine how wide this area was. Moreover, unlike those spirit crystal mineral veins in the ground, which were mixed with some other wild talk, this was pure spirit crystals. After many years, the spirit crystals might have automatically glued together to form a spirit crystal mineral vein, or it might have been forcefully integrated together by the original owner of the cave. Yi Shiwen looked around, and there were actually hundreds of small spirit crystal mineral veins, adding up to a total of trillions of spirit crystals. Yi Shiwen's face suddenly showed an ecstatic expression. Trillions of spirit crystals were enough to make him completely rich overnight. In other words, all the wealth he had obtained in the past added up, but it did not reach trillions of spirit crystals. It could be said that with this trillions of spirit crystal mineral vein, he did not need to worry about the problem of not having enough spirit crystals for a long time. The martial arts that Yi Shiwen practiced, and the treasures in his body that could not see the light, were all black holes that devoured the Lingqi. It was unknown how long it would take for him to accumulate and earn spirit crystals by himself, and the progress could not be compared with the current progress. Chapter 1530. Yi Shiwen almost wanted to look up to the sky and laugh. Sure enough, all kinds of fortuitous encounters were the biggest catalysts for progress. Even a peerless genius wouldn't be able to step into Yi Shiwen's current realm within 200 years if he were to progress at the normal pace. Just like Yi Kuang, he was just thinking of ways to break through to the 6th level of Celestial Realm. Now, he had definitely stepped into the 7th level of Celestial Realm. If he just relied on himself to cultivate, it would take at least 100 years. He must have had some shocking fortuitous encounter during this period of time to have such strength. Trillions of spirit crystals were enough for him to break into the 4th level of Celestial Realm in one go. However, he definitely couldn't do it in this cave dwelling, otherwise he might attract the attack of the restriction. Yi Shiwen didn't even have time to pause. He could feel a strong aura behind him jumping in and following closely behind, not giving him any extra time at all. Even the demon race behind him rushed in, and the cave dwelling seemed to have been stimulated by something. The thick spirit qi started to boil. Many experts that rushed and couldn't suppress the boiling spirit qi and were instantly injured. This was the spirit qi tide, which usually only happened in the most chaotic places. Once the spirit qi tide occurred, the qi in many people's bodies could be triggered and riot. Some strong spirit qi tides could even drown celestial realm experts. Even if it was a celestial realm existence, when facing the power of heaven, they weren't much stronger than others. There wasn't much difference. A seal word appeared in Yi Shiwen's body, instantly suppressing the boiling qi. He wasn't affected at all, and immediately rushed into the deepest cave dwelling of the cave dwelling. He broke through a few cave dwellings and found that the deeper the room, the more good things there were. In the outermost room, there were only some scattered spirit crystals, about 1 million or so. Although it wasn't a small amount, it was far from what he was going to get. Many tyrannical figures chased closely behind him, not stopping for a moment. There's actually a spirit crystal mine here. I'm rich. I found a spirit crystal mine. A person saw a spiritual crystal vein and immediately roared crazily. This immediately attracted the attention of many experts. The unlucky guy was killed on the spot, and the spirit crystal vein was split into more than a dozen pieces in the midst of the competition, which were plundered by some experts at the 6th level of the Celestial Realm. Just one spirit crystal mineral vein was enough to make these experts go crazy over it. One could well imagine how much wealth Yi Shiwen had casually taken away hundreds of small spirit crystal mineral veins. This can't just be the cave of a heaven realm expert. Such wealth is something that even a heaven realm expert wouldn't have. Many people made a new judgment about the strength of the owner of this cave. They were afraid that he was much more powerful than they had originally guessed. Just from the fact that they could occasionally find spirit crystal veins, it could be seen that he was much stronger. Even these old antiques who had sealed their cultivation, or the top heavens prides of various clans, didn't have a spirit crystal mineral vein. No matter how much wealth they had, there was no way to condense spirit crystals into a spirit crystal mineral vein. This was already beyond their ability. One by one, the restrictions of the cave were broken. There was a lot of wealth in each room of the cave. Although there was no room like the one that Yi Shiwen had encountered before, which had hundreds of spirit crystal mineral veins, even half a spirit crystal mineral vein, was already an extremely huge amount of wealth for them. Boom! Another restriction was blasted open by Yi Shiwen. This was the innermost room of the entire cave. It was different from the luxurious treasures outside. This was an extremely quiet secret room, like the original living room of the owner. On the other side of the bed, a figure was sitting cross-legged. Looking closely, it was a middle-aged man who looked about 30 years old. He was vivid and lifelike, just like when he was alive. However, Yi Shiwen could feel that his body was already cold, without the slightest vitality. Damn human boy. I will dismember your corpse into 10,000 pieces. The roar of the great devil clan's royal highness could be heard from afar. He hated Yi Shiwen to the extreme. He had killed all the way here, and had followed Yi Shiwen's footsteps. Damn, at this time, Yi Shiwen didn't have time to think too much. He directly picked up an incomplete map and a Taoist book on the bed. When he was about to look again, suddenly, the temperature in the void seemed to have suddenly dropped by countless degrees. An ice-cold feeling seemed to freeze Yi Shiwen in an instant. The middle-aged man who was originally sitting cross-legged on the bed suddenly opened his eyes and woke up. His green eyes exuded a terrifying light. "Who dares to disturb my eternal sleep?" A low and deep voice came out as if it had come from hell. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. It was as if he had encountered a tyrannical evil spirit. A zombie! These two words suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's mind. Generally speaking, even if the powerhouses who had entered the celestial realm died, they would not turn into zombies. Each of those powerhouses was a legend. They were legends when they were alive, and they were legends when they were dead. Even if they were dead, they would not decay and disappear like ordinary people. Instead, they would be lifelike before they were alive. Their bodies still contained the powerful strength they had when they were alive. Ordinary powerhouses would be directly suppressed to death by the martial arts truth they left behind. However, this was not absolute. Once they turned into zombies, then these immortal corpses could directly evolve into zombies. Moreover, they could directly evolve into high-level flying zombies. Although the possibility was extremely small, it was far smaller than the probability of ordinary corpses turning into zombies under the sun. After all, they were already myths, legends, and were recognized by the laws of heaven and earth. However, once they evolved into zombies, it would be an extremely terrible disaster for the world. Once they became zombies, they could directly become the zombie king. They could directly turn a secular country into a zombie country with only zombies running rampant overnight. At this time, Yi Shiwen didn't have the mood to continue investigating. He immediately fled out of the room without any hesitation. The zombie behind him moved. The aura of its body became more and more powerful. In an instant, it shrouded over. "Boy, there's a way to heaven, but you don't want to go. There is no door to hell, but you want to break in." Yi Shiwen had just rushed out when he bumped into the great devil race's royal highness. At this time, when he saw that Yi Shiwen seemed to be courting death, he suddenly burst into laughter, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. "Get lost!" Yi Shiwen didn't have the leisure to talk with him at this time. "Anyone who blocks my way will die." At this time, he was like a rampaging tank and directly crashed into the ranks of the devil race's experts on the spot. Terrifying power, coupled with extraordinary speed, almost instantly crashed into a devil race's expert who couldn't dodge in time. In front of Yi Shiwen, the strength of the celestial being level was simply like a piece of paper. "Bastard, you still dare to be arrogant." The royal highness of the great devil race was almost depressed to death. This Yishuan still dared to be so arrogant in front of him. "I think you are courting death." The royal highness of the great devil race suddenly became furious. Endless spiritual energy instantly condensed in his hand, and a blood-red long spear appeared in his hand. His figure also crazily grew. Shwa! The blood-red long spear directly pierced the vast sky and pierced towards Yi Shiwen's fleeing back. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt an extremely dangerous aura approaching from behind. Even if he was in such a hurry to escape, he didn't dare to use his body to block it. He directly turned around, spread out his hands, and in front of him, a golden wall appeared. Boom! The long spear instantly blasted into the golden wall. After piercing the spearhead, it was already weak. Instead, Yi Shiwen took advantage of this impact and was blasted a long distance away on the spot. Still want to escape? The royal highness of the great devil race thought that Yi Shiwen was afraid of his fierce power. Suddenly, his aura was like a rainbow, and he wanted to catch up with Yi Shiwen. Just at this time, he suddenly felt that the younger generation began to feel cold. Suddenly, a withered white claw grabbed out on the spot, broke through the void, and went straight to the back of the royal highness of the great devil race. Shwa! At this time, the pair of fleshy wings behind the royal highness of the great devil race suddenly flapped, and his figure moved forward by hundreds of feet and barely avoided the attack of this sharp claw. However, a devil expert didn't have enough time to dodge, or it could be said that he didn't have any defense at all. On the spot, this sharp claw grabbed his heart and grabbed him. Then, all the blood energy in his body was absorbed at an astonishing speed. It was almost visible to the naked eye, and this devil expert immediately turned into a dry corpse. Huff, huff! The royal highness of the great devil race was constantly breathing rapidly. He was horrified to find that a green-faced, ferocious-fanged zombie had jumped out of that room. In just a short period of time, that corpse seemed to have experienced 10,000 years and had transformed into a terrifying zombie. He had almost been killed by this zombie just now. If his reaction had been a little slower, then the person who would have been killed would have been him. Originally, with his cultivation and fearless courage, there shouldn't be anything that could make him reveal such a frightened expression. However, he now discovered that he was wrong. He was really wrong in the past. What fearless? It was because he had never encountered such a terrifying monster that could kill him in one blow. The strength that he was so proud of seemed so ridiculous and pale in the face of such a monster. At this time, he finally didn't understand why Yi Shiwen had escaped just now. It wasn't because he was afraid of him, but because he was afraid of this monster. Chapter 1531. Even if it was a celestial realm master, in front of this mutated zombie, he was not much stronger than an ant. Yi Shiwen crazily spread his demon wings and flew all the way. Fortunately, there were Devil Clan masters behind him. When he encountered danger, he did not need to run too fast, he just needed to be faster than the people behind him. With those Devil Clan masters holding off the zombie, Yi Shiwen finally had time to look at the things he obtained in the living room. They were a scroll and a Taoist book. After a while, Yi Shiwen finally came to know that this map was called the Five Elements Qian Yuan diagram. It was the magic weapon of the original owner of this cave mansion, Five Elements Supreme. However, it had been completely destroyed in a life and death battle. And this battle was precisely the battle where Five Elements Supreme had perished. In the end, Five Elements Supreme, who finally eliminated the invading enemy, only had time to return to the living room and died. He did not even have time to arrange his funeral. Just as many people guessed, Five Elements Supreme was indeed a powerful master who surpassed the celestial realm. This Five Elements Qian Yuan diagram was also his magic treasure. Although it was now broken, and only the earth element of the five elements could still exert its power, even so, it still had the power of a heaven-grade magic tool. If the second of the five elements could be restored, it could immediately be promoted to the level of a heaven-grade top magic tool. If the third of the five elements could be restored, its power would immediately surpass that of a heaven-grade magic tool. Yi Shiwen could also imagine how powerful the five elements Qian Yuan diagram was. And this Taoist book had recorded the sacrificial method of the five elements Qian Yuan diagram. Although it was extremely difficult to restore, but it gave Yi Shiwen hope. If he could restore more than 3 of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram, then the power of the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram would have a qualitative improvement, surpassing the level of a heaven-level divine tool. Yi Shiwen even guessed that if the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram could be completely restored, it might even be a terrifying magic tool that was not inferior to the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber. Yi Shiwen did not doubt the power of the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber at all. It was just that he had no way to control it until now. Yi Shiwen's current cultivation was still far from being able to control the Emergence Immortal Exterminating Saber. However, if he could repair the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram step by step, then the situation would be completely different. It would be equivalent to him refining it all over again. Naturally, he would be able to command it with ease. Compared to the 5 elements Qian Yuan diagram, Yi Shiwen felt that the real harvest was this Taoist book. This Taoist book recorded 5 Elements Supreme's lifetime martial Tao insights and some top-notch martial arts. When used in conjunction with the 5 Elements Qian Yuan diagram, its power would be doubled. For the current Yi Shiwen, it was tantamount to adding wings to a tiger. With these martial arts that surpassed the heaven level, his fighting strength would once again cross over to a whole new level. For ordinary people, it would be very difficult to comprehend these martial techniques with the cultivation of heaven stage. However, it wasn't difficult for Yi Shiwen. He had the help of the mysterious space in addition to the hundreds of spirit crystal mineral veins that he had just obtained. So, he had full confidence to comprehend the martial techniques recorded in this Taoist book. However, now that he was frantically escaping, he didn't have the time to look carefully. The entire cave residence was like a maze that extended in all directions. Yi Shiwen's figure was constantly shuttling through it. Apart from avoiding the zombie that he didn't know where it was, he also had to find Feng Qi, who had stepped into this place before him. Feng Qi's last message to him was so urgent. He must have already found traces of the people from the Xiantian Alliance. When that time came, there would inevitably be another fierce battle. It's really like wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. A cold laughter came from the sky. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen found that he had been instantly locked by a divine thought. Then, Yi Shiwen suddenly felt an extremely dangerous feeling in his heart. His complexion suddenly changed, and his figure suddenly flew more than a kilometer away. It seemed as if he had moved horizontally in the void. At the moment when his figure dashed out, a huge hand pressed down directly, smashing the entire sky into pieces on the spot. The ground instantly cracked open and turned into smoke and dust. The terrifying power of this palm could be seen. Who is it? Yi Shiwen looked into the void and saw a person walking out of the sky. It was Beishan Zhu, who Yi Shiwen had seen before outside the cave residence. This palm was precisely struck out by him. The palm split open the sky, terrifying to the extreme. In reality, if an ordinary expert at the 6th heaven of the heaven tier were to be struck by it without the slightest bit of defense, they would probably be killed on the spot, without any other accidents. Wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. I originally wanted to find you, but I didn't expect that you would deliver yourself to me. Beishan Zhu stood with his hands behind his back, looking down at Yi Shiwen as if he was looking at an ant. He didn't take Yi Shiwen seriously at all. You want to kill me with just you? I think there's something wrong with your head. Don't think that you dare to attack me just because you have some reputation in the Beishan clan. Yi Shiwen said disdainfully. In the outside world, he might not be this Beishan Zhu's opponent, but in this cave residence, he was not afraid of anyone because he was not inferior to anyone. I think you're tired of living. You're about to die, and you don't even know it. Beishan Zhu's expression changed. He was completely infuriated by Yi Shiwen's words. This kid was merely at the 3rd level of the heaven realm, and he actually dared to treat him like this. He was definitely tired of living, Yi Shiwen, you killed my Beishan clan's clan leader. Your sins are monstrous. Today will be the day you die. Beishan Ju looked at Yi Shiwen coldly, as if he had locked down everything. That trash is actually your clan leader. It seems that the Beishan clan really has no one left. Yi Shiwen said without holding back. I think you're looking for death. Beishan Ju was instantly enraged. The flames behind him soared to the sky, and the chi scattered in all directions. He completely displayed his terrifying strength. He was the strongest expert of the younger generation since he was young. In addition to the Beishan clan's power in the ancient Barons continent, no one had ever dared to speak to him like this, let alone slandering the Beishan clan like this. Even if it was just a puppet, the Beishan clan's face had indeed been lost long ago, especially when it was killed by Yi Shiwen. At that time, what cultivation did Yi Shiwen have? If they couldn't kill Yi Shiwen, then this humiliation would follow the Beishan clan forever. Yi Shiwen's battle record would forever have a new line added to it, killing the clan leader of the Beishan clan. The others didn't care that it was just a puppet that was easy to control. To them, the puppet was also the clan leader of the Beishan clan. You're the one who's tired of living. Since you know that your clan leader died in my hands, you still dare to find trouble with me. Yi Shiwen said. Yi Shiwen, don't think that you can look down on the Beishan clan just because you killed a mere puppet. Beishan Ju was instantly enraged. His gigantic palm came crashing down with a loud rumble. Boundless true elemental energy pervaded the air, rising against the wind and transforming into a gigantic hand. It came crashing down towards Yi Shiwen. This huge hand condensed endless laws of the great Tao. At this moment, it landed on Yi Shiwen's body, and at this moment, Yi Shiwen directly pointed with a finger. The heaven imprisoning technique transformed into a huge cage on the spot, shattering the huge hand. The cage's momentum didn't decrease, and it directly enveloped Beishan Ju. The heaven imprisoning technique of the heaven severing finger had long been condensed by Yi Shiwen to the point of perfection. One finger was enough to break the heavens, and one finger could even imprison the heavens. The power of this technique could be imagined. What martial arts technique is this? A look of shock appeared on Beishan Ju's face. His huge hand was shattered by Yi Shiwen's finger on the spot, and he retreated repeatedly. In front of him, the chi shield completely collapsed, shattering inch by inch. A sword aura condensed in his hand, and a long sword appeared in his hand. He drew a circle in the sky, and countless light swords condensed out of thin air. They cut through the sky and came crashing down. Whoosh! 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 An ear-piercing sound of breaking through the air rang out. The sky was filled with light swords, and they almost covered the entire sky. It was as if the entire sky had become a sea of sword clouds. Die! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly, and directly took a step forward. In an instant, he rushed in front of Beishan Ju. He directly grabbed with his huge hand, and the sword aura was instantly caught in his hand. The swords in his hand were still flashing wildly, and they wanted to mince Yi Shiwen's hand into pieces. However, Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the 10th level of Tyrant Body. How terrifying was his physical body? Even when facing the descendants of deities, he did not fall into a disadvantageous position. He dared to fight against the dragon race of the same level. The sword aura kept flashing in Yi Shiwen's hand, but it could not escape from Yi Shiwen's palm. Bit by bit, it was crushed into pieces. These energies were crushed and fused into a ball of energy by Yi Shiwen. Immediately after, he directly threw it towards Beishan Ju. Boom! This huge wave of energy suddenly turned into a ball of energy torrent in the sky and fiercely blasted towards Beishan Ju. Suddenly, countless streaks of white light appeared in front of Beishan Ju. They interweaved in the void, forming a latitude and longitude. It was like a huge net, and it blocked in front of him. Boom! These streaks of white light completely collapsed in the face of this terrifying energy torrent. This was a battle between Beishan Ju's own strength and his own energy. Previously, when he wanted to kill Yi Shiwen, he did not hold back at all. In addition, after Yi Shiwen fused with it, its power became even stronger. Boom! This energy torrent finally broke through the huge net formed by the streaks of white light. Amidst the roar and the void, it ruthlessly landed on Beishan Ju's body. Bang! Beishan Ju was instantly blasted away. Like a cannonball, he smashed into the wall. Chapter 1532. Amidst the endless smoke and dust, a seven-colored ray of light spread out in all directions, covering the entire void. Beishan Ju, who was supposed to be severely injured by Yi Shiwen, had a seven-colored divine robe appear on his body, blocking the attack that was supposed to be fatal. Yi Shiwen, you actually dared to injure me, Beishan Ju said coldly. His voice sounded as if it came from hell. This is an unforgivable crime. Even if the gods come, they can forget about saving you. He opened his eyes, and his aura suddenly rose. Under the contrast of the colorful, godly robe, he was like a god. Compared to before, his aura had a fundamental increase. I will let you know the consequences of offending me, Beishan Ju said coldly. What a joke! Do I need anyone to save me? Yi Shiwen said with a cold smile. He took a step forward and pointed his finger. The sky shaking technique. Under his finger, the entire sky trembled. Compared to the sky imprisoning technique, the sky shaking technique was even more powerful. His fingertips emitted layers of halos, like the halos of the sky trembling. You want to die? I will fulfill your wish. Beishan Ju took a step forward, and his aura continued to explode. The colorful, godly robe released an even more intense light. A colorful sword appeared in his hand, and he instantly stabbed out with the sword. It was extremely fast, and in an instant, a huge crack appeared in the sky. The tip of the sword and Yi Shiwen's finger collided head-on. The terrifying aura from both sides swept out, shattering the endless void. In the sky, with the two of them as the center, countless cracks instantly shattered, and the cracks spread out into the distant void. Boundless airwaves blew on Yi Shiwen, causing his hair to flutter. The airwaves were incomparably huge. To be able to force me to use my full strength, you can die in peace. Beishan Ju's voice was incomparably cold. At this time, the battle here had attracted the attention of many experts. Although this cave was like an underground labyrinth that extended in all directions, no matter how big it was, it could not be bigger than this world. Many people quickly noticed the battle between the two. Why are the two of them fighting? This Northmont Jew's strength is tyrannical. It is said that he has long since stepped into the seventh layer of the sky human stage and is a big shot. Even though he has sealed his cultivation base, he is still an invincible existence. Who is this person? How can he be compared to Beishan Ju? I know this person. He is the genius of the Yi family who shone brilliantly in the imperial court struggle. Yi Shiwen. However, he is still young. It is said that he is only 200 years old. How can he be so powerful? He can actually contend with North Mountain Ju. Although North Mountain Ju has sealed his cultivation, he is still not someone that ordinary people can deal with. That Northern Mountain Ju should be wearing the Northern Mountain Clan's seven-colored treasured robe. Rumor has it that the ancestor of the Northern Mountain Clan once killed a peerless powerhouse and stole the cultivation method of the seven-colored treasured robe from him. However, due to the complexity of the refining process and the high requirements of the materials, in reality, there aren't many people who possess the seven-colored treasured robe. Northern Mountain Ju has actually been forced to use the seven-colored treasured robe. He must have been in a sorry state just now. At this time, many people began to discuss spiritedly. Everyone was not unfamiliar with these two people. They could tell at a glance. Beishan Ju's magic power instantly skyrocketed under the support of the seven-colored treasured robe. He was like a demon god as he approached Yi Shiwen step by step. With every step he took, his strength increased by a fraction. The surrounding spirit chi was boiling around his body, and an invisible force formed around his body, forming a domain. And within this domain, Beishan Ju was the only god in the world, an existence that controlled everything. He came in front of Yi Shiwen and tore with both hands. A majestic force accompanied his hands and directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen's chest. It wanted to directly tear him apart and turn him into pieces. Yi Shiwen's actions had completely enraged him. As Yi Shiwen looked at the seven-colored treasured robe, he recalled that the North Mountain Ling and the Northern Mountain Clan chief also seemed to have such a seven-colored treasured robe. However, compared to North Mountain Jew, their robes were like knockoffs. They were completely incomparable. Perhaps the sacrificial refining method was the same, but the materials used should be worlds apart. Moreover, compared to North Mountain Jew in terms of cultivation, the difference was like heaven and earth. It was like the difference between a god and an ant. However, even so, in order to deal with that seven-colored treasured robe, Yi Shiwen had no choice but to use the emergence immortal exterminating saber to kill them. It could be seen that this seven-colored treasured robe was very powerful. At this time, Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed. This seven-colored treasured robe was so powerful that it probably already had the power of a heaven-level top-grade magic tool. If he wore it, coupled with the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron and his tyrant body, who could compete with him? Boom! This majestic force fell on the surface of Yi Shiwen's body and was stopped 3 feet away. An ancient cauldron appeared on the surface of Yi Shiwen's body, wrapping his whole body in it. This majestic force blasted on the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron and was forcefully dissolved by the power of the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. It turned into boundless airwaves that rippled out. Full strength? Is this your full strength? I think it's only so. Yi Shiwen sneered. He took a step forward and pinched a seal with his hand. The Han seal materialized in the air and directly materialized. It was like a huge mountain range that directly smashed down towards North Mountain Jew. You don't know what's good for you. You don't even know that you're about to die. North Mountain Jew snorted coldly. His nostrils were like thunder. He suddenly took a step forward and immediately formed a huge matrix. A terrifying force was added to his body. Around his body, the laws of the Great Way began to flutter, adding to the kingdom around him in the void. Above his head, endless sword aura began to condense, forming a huge sword. On the spot, it slashed out like lightning. It was unpredictable, and its speed was extremely fast. It directly slashed towards Yi Shiwen on the spot. He actually didn't care about Yi Shiwen's Han seal at all. In other words, he firmly believed that the 7-colored treasured robe could block the Han seal. He actually didn't care about defense at all and directly slashed down. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop. Bang! Yi Shiwen's reaction was not slow at all. His hands directly blocked in front of him. Endless golden light spurted out from his fingertips, forming a golden frenzy. In an instant, it blocked the slash of the huge sword. This huge sword slashed into the golden frenzy. After slashing out a monstrous wave, it was unable to go any further. Slowly, it was swallowed by the golden frenzy. At the same time, Yi Shiwen's Han seal finally fell on North Mountain Jew's body. Dang! A sound that was almost like the sound of metal colliding rang out. The Han seal was immediately blocked by the colorful light emitted by the 7-colored treasured robe. It was unable to continue slashing down. What a good treasure. I just happen to be lacking such a defensive inner armor, Yi Shiwen said with a loud laugh. He looked at the 7-colored treasured robe with even more satisfaction. What? Yi Shiwen can actually still laugh now? With this 7-colored treasured robe, North Mountain Jew is practically invincible. Unless the opponent is much stronger than him, it is impossible to forcefully break through it. Facing such an enemy, Yi Shiwen can actually still laugh, and he even wants to snatch the 7-colored treasured robe. That's nothing. Although North Mountain Jew is powerful, Yi Shiwen isn't any worse. Do you see that ancient cauldron on his body? It can protect him at any time. I think its defensive ability is not inferior to that 7-colored treasured robe at all. No matter who wins in the end, it will be a good thing for us. After all, although there are many treasures in this cave residence, it can't be divided among so many people. This is just the right time. No matter who wins or loses, or if both of them get injured, it will be a good thing for us. I think you've lost your mind. You actually want to covet my seven-colored treasured robe? North Mountain Jew said angrily. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was simply crazy. Otherwise, how could he possibly want to snatch his seven-colored treasured robe? Even the craziest madman wouldn't dare to have such an idea. Lost my mind? That's nothing. In my eyes, you are nothing but a joke. If it weren't for this seven-colored treasured robe, you wouldn't be a match for me at all. What genius of the North Mountain clan. It's all bullsh asterisk T. It's all a joke. Without this seven-colored treasured robe, you don't even have the qualifications to fight me. Yi Shiwen laughed disdainfully. North Mountain Jew's face immediately fell. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to actually dare to treat him like this. He had never been humiliated like this before, and Yi Shiwen just had to dare to say such words. Die! Sword chi condensed in his hand again. The sword chi crisscrossed and faintly fused with the void. His entire person seemed to have transformed into a treasured sword. Man and sword as one. It was extremely terrifying. Whoosh! The sword chi swept across the sky and instantly swept out. Because it had fused with the void, there was no way to clearly see the trajectory of the slash. It could be said to be extremely fast. It's useless. Don't you understand the gap between you and me? The suffering I've endured to reach this stage is far beyond what you can imagine. So, my strength is also far beyond what you can imagine. In front of me, you are as laughable as a jumping clown, Yi Shiwen said with a sneer. Brat, don't talk big. Take this sword of mine first. North Mountain Jew's cold voice reverberated in the void. The entire void was like boiled water, boiling. Sword light shot out in all directions. Under the circumstances where no one could see it, it had already slashed in front of Yi Shiwen. A sharp and threatening sword chi instantly approached Yi Shiwen's face. Chapter 1533. Fast, fast, fast. Whoosh! An astonishing sword light appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. It was as fast as a swan. It was so fast that it could not be seen by the naked eye. It only appeared when it was close to Yi Shiwen's face. It was the essence of unbreakable speed. Crash! The sword light slashed down, and it brought about a terrifying frenzy. It directly blew Yi Shiwen's hair into the air, and his clothes also fluttered in the wind. Die! And at this time, North Mountain Jew, who was moving with his sword, finally flashed out of the void. His face revealed a somewhat ferocious expression. He looked at Yi Shiwen as if he was looking at a dead man. Is it fast? Yi Shiwen suddenly asked. North Mountain Jew finally realized that something was wrong. If that's all you've got, then I'm faster than you. Yi Shiwen sneered. A pair of demon wings instantly spread out behind him. His figure seemed to have teleported and disappeared from where he was, leaving behind an afterimage. And North Mountain Jew's sword light directly pierced through his skull, and then it pierced through on the spot. It directly pierced the afterimage, but it did not pierce Yi Shiwen's body. What not good? The North Mountain Jew finally realized that things might not be good. His speed had already reached the limit. Being in the void, it could be said that it was impossible to guard against him. But even so, it was still easily broken by Yi Shiwen. This instantly caused him to be alarmed. You only reacted now? Isn't it too slow? Yi Shiwen's laughter came from the void. And when North Mountain Jew reacted again, he discovered that Yi Shiwen had actually appeared in front of him without him knowing. There was not even a foot between them. He could almost see the cold and ruthless expression on Yi Shiwen's face. His pupils suddenly shrank. He saw that Yi Shiwen directly pointed out with a finger. Endless halos emitted from his fingertips, and a terrifying power boiled on his fingertips. It directly pierced through the sky and touched his body. Although he saw it, he had no time to react. His body couldn't keep up with his reaction speed. At this time, he was directly hit by Yi Shiwen's finger on the spot. Endless rays of light shone. The seven-colored treasured clothes on his body almost instantly formed a seven-colored light shield, protecting Northern Mountain Jew. However, Yi Shiwen's strength was incomparably tyrannical. He had mastered the essence of breaking a surface with a single point. His finger directly broke the shield formed by the 7-colored treasured clothes on the spot. Then, it directly fell on Northern Mountain Jew's body. Xiao! A loud and shrill air-piercing sound rang out. Beishan Ju's entire body was like a cannonball as he was sent flying, once again smashing into the wall. If it wasn't for the fact that this cave abode had been reinforced by 5 elements true lord for countless years, just this force alone would have been enough to instantly reduce an ordinary mountain range to dust. What? Am I seeing things? So fast. Both of them are so fast. Someone blinked his eyes, as if he didn't dare to confirm that what he saw was real. This was simply terrifying. It's really unbelievable. Beishan Ju's speed is already extremely fast. I thought that Yi Shiwen definitely wouldn't be able to block it this time and would have to use that ancient cauldron to protect himself. I didn't expect Yi Shiwen's speed to be so fast as well. Beishan Ju's speed is actually at a complete disadvantage in front of him. Too strong. Both of them are too strong. I didn't expect the younger generation to be so tyrannical. They could be called peerless geniuses. Such people, even if they sealed their cultivation, they are still extremely tyrannical. Endless smoke and dust floated up. The mountain rocks collapsed. Beishan Ju's entire body was blasted into the mountain wall, creating a human-shaped hole. Even the 7-colored treasured clothes on his body was instantly broken by Yi Shiwen's finger. Although most of the power was absorbed by the 7-colored treasured clothes, the remaining power still sent Beishan Ju flying in an instant. Some people with good eyesight immediately realized that compared to Yi Shiwen's speed, his strength didn't seem to be inferior in the slightest. They had no way of participating in a battle like this. Even some of the old antiques and old monsters at the 7th or 8th level of the sky human realm, who had sealed their cultivation to come here at this time, when they saw the battle between the two of them, their expressions couldn't help but change greatly. One after another, they shouted that the younger generation was truly formidable. The younger generation nowadays was getting more and more tyrannical. And at this time, in the void, over a dozen figures directly rushed out. They were the experts of the Beishan clan that Beishan Ju had brought with him. They had been lying in ambush in the void for a long time. Initially, Beishan Ju was very confident and thought that he alone would be enough to kill Yi Shiwen. Who knew that Yi Shiwen would be so powerful and terrifying? Even if it was him, in front of Yi Shiwen, it seemed that he could only be defeated again and again. These over a dozen powerful experts were powerful experts at the 4th level of the sky human realm, at the very least. There were even 2 old antiques among them who had sealed their cultivation. Although they only had the cultivation of the 6th level of the sky human realm at the moment, every move they made was a terrifying existence that far surpassed the 6th level of the sky human realm. At this time, they finally couldn't stand by and watch anymore. They wanted to join forces and slaughter Yi Shiwen. They roared furiously and pounced towards Yi Shiwen, courting death. Yi Shiwen sneered as he looked at the experts of the Beishan clan flying towards him in the void. He took a step forward, and as if he had teleported, he instantly appeared in front of one of the experts of the Beishan clan. He was extremely fast. That Beishan clan expert at the 4th level of the sky human realm didn't even have time to react, and Yi Shiwen had actually already pounced in front of him. In the eyes of everyone, Yi Shiwen's movements seemed to be extremely slow, but in fact, they were extremely fast. In everyone's eyes, Yi Shiwen only raised his fist. He didn't even need to wave it. With the momentum brought by his terrifying speed and the powerful speed brought by the Northern Mountain Clan's expert, the Northern Mountain Clan's expert had no way to stop him. The Northern Mountain Clan's expert directly slammed into Yi Shiwen's head, like a watermelon breaking. His head couldn't compete with Yi Shiwen's fist in the end, and it had completely shattered in an instant, and his body still rushed to the place where Yi Shiwen was just standing with unparalleled inertia. Boom! After his head was blown off, he couldn't control his body at all, and crashed into the mountain wall on the spot, and there was no more movement. So fast! Although they had already seen Yi Shiwen's speed just now, at this time, they really realized how terrifying Yi Shiwen's speed was. As the saying goes, Only with comparison could one show how powerful Yi Shiwen was. When Yi Shiwen and Beishanju fought before, although Beishanju couldn't keep up with Yi Shiwen's speed, he was still strong and could still react, so it didn't show how terrifying Yi Shiwen was. But now, this warrior at the 4th level of the sky human realm, in front of Yi Shiwen, didn't even have time to react before he died in his hands. In the eyes of everyone, Yi Shiwen just raised his fist, and that person came to him on his own accord, slamming his head to death. This was the most terrifying thing. Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts, and many people originally had some restless thoughts in their hearts. They were still thinking about the half of the yin-yang life and death diagram in Yi Shiwen's body. This was a treasure that even the Abyss Demon Lord wanted to personally fight for, so how could they not be tempted by it? They originally wanted to take advantage of this place, to kill Yi Shiwen and seize the yin-yang life and death diagram. Now it seemed how ridiculous their previous thoughts were. After going out, it was hard to say who would win and who would lose, but here they could only seal their cultivation. In front of Yi Shiwen, if they couldn't display the advantage of their original realm, they would simply be sending themselves to death, and probably wouldn't be much better than these people. Their thoughts changed countless times in an instant, and in the field, Yi Shiwen's movements didn't stop after killing a master at the 4th level of the sky human realm. On the contrary, he had almost instantly pounced on the other masters of the Beishan clan. Boom! 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 These masters of the Beishan clan were killed by Yi Shiwen on the spot in the air. In the blink of an eye, in just a few breaths' time, only 2 old antiques at the 7th level of the sky human realm who had sealed their cultivation were left. The others had already been killed by Yi Shiwen's sword. In front of Yi Shiwen, they almost had no power to fight back. Whether it was strength or speed, Yi Shiwen was far more powerful than they could imagine. No! At this time, Beishanju finally reacted and immediately shouted. His heart was bleeding. These were the most fundamental forces that would allow him to compete for the position of the Beishan clan's patriarch in the future. Even with his realm, it was not easy to rope in these arrogant sky human realm masters. Especially among them, there were a few at the 5th and 6th level of the sky human realm. They were the true elites of the elites, and it was not easy to recruit any one of them. They were far from what those ordinary martial artists at the 4th level of the sky human realm and below could compare with. After killing these weak martial artists, Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. On the spot, he directly went to kill the remaining 2 old antiques who had sealed their cultivation. These 2 people were worthy of being old antiques who had sealed their cultivation. Although their cultivation had been sealed, in terms of strength, they were still much stronger than ordinary experts at the peak of the 6th level of the sky human realm. Even if their cultivation was sealed, the remaining part of their cultivation was still enough to crush everyone. It was also because they had encountered a freak like Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, ordinary people would not be enough in front of them. Die! These 2 masters immediately didn't hesitate. They were both wily old foxes, and it was unknown how many battles they had experienced in their lives. Naturally, they knew that they absolutely could not be defeated by Yi Shiwen one by one. Otherwise, they would really be dead. They immediately joined forces and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 1534. These 2 were antiques who had already stepped into the 7th celestial realm. They also had great adventures. Otherwise, they would not have been able to step into the 7th celestial realm. Although it was only a difference of 1 celestial realm, it determined the status of an ordinary big shot in the Ancient Barrens, which was completely different. If it was outside, either of these 2 figures was an opponent that Yi Shiwen could not match. But now, in order to enter this cave mansion, they had to seal their cultivation, which was an extremely dangerous thing in itself. This was also the reason why many experts of the 8th and 9th celestial realm were not willing to come in and take the risk because there was no guarantee. If there was an accident, they might be killed on the spot. It was not worth it for a little treasure. The 2 joined forces, and their speed was extremely fast, like lightning tearing the sky, extremely terrifying. The 2 punched out, and the monstrous fist energy swept out. The whole void was like boiling water, fluctuating wildly. as if a boulder had been thrown into the water. Bang! Yi Shiwen spread out his hands, and the endless fist energy was blocked on the spot by Yi Shiwen. That boundless infinity was directly crushed by him. Break for me, shocking sky form. He pointed in the void, like a god pointing out in an instant. The chi energy pierced a big hole in the void, and then shook wildly. The whole sky seemed to conform to some kind of law and fluctuation, and under this kind of fluctuation, it completely collapsed. This terrifying fluctuation, in an instant, had already blasted in front of the two antiques. The two antiques suddenly turned pale with fright. In front of Yi Shiwen, their attack seemed too insignificant, and they were not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. They quickly joined forces to arrange layers of defense. Boom! 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 The chi energy that Yi Shiwen pointed out carried inexplicable fluctuations, and everywhere it passed, the sky completely collapsed. This was the most terrifying part of the shocking sky form. Different from the imprisoning sky form, the essence of the imprisoning sky form was the word imprisoning, which could restrict the space in an instant. This sky-shaking style used violent fluctuations to shatter everything, just like how a dolphin's voice could shatter a glass bottle. However, it was a more advanced spatial fluctuation, which involved another very profound martial arts theory. Yi Shiwen hadn't fully understood it yet, but it was more than enough for him to display the shocking sky form. Yi Shiwen's Qi Jin unceasingly broke the defensive matrix arrays that they had arranged. These defensive matrix arrays were completely vulnerable in front of Yi Shiwen's shocking heaven form, and were completely penetrated in an instant. When it reached the last layer, it was like an arrow at the end of its flight, completely dissipating. Their faces were full of cold sweat, not daring to believe it. Yi Shiwen's skill was simply so profound that it was terrifying. Ordinary celestial beings, 6th celestial realm martial artists, would be easily left behind by him. Even if the two of them were old antiques who had sealed their own cultivation realm, at this time, they could only barely block his offensive by joining hands. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that someone could be so powerful. This was simply not human, and most importantly, Yi Shiwen was only a mere celestial being 3rd celestial realm, and he was already so terrifying. If he ascended to the celestial being's 6th celestial realm, then there would be no place for these old guys to stand. Most importantly, there was such a genius among the human race, and for them, it would not be good news. It's not a good thing to be distracted in this situation. Suddenly, they were horrified to find that Yi Shiwen's voice had actually appeared behind them. Sure enough, Yi Shiwen had already disappeared in front of them, and just at the moment when they were panic-stricken and absent-minded, Yi Shiwen had already moved horizontally behind them. So fast. How can he be so fast? Not to mention the two of them. Even those experts who were watching from afar only felt a blur in front of their eyes, and Yi Shiwen had already appeared behind the two old antiques. In the sky, Yi Shiwen's expression was ice-cold, and he moved like lightning. He suddenly stepped out with one foot, and everyone only saw that he had stepped on a huge hole in the sky. His foot suddenly stepped on the back of an old antique. Bang! A loud, muffled sound rang out, and the antique let out a mournful scream. He felt as if his entire body was about to split apart on the spot. Yi Shiwen's strength was too terrifying. He was like a ferocious beast draped in human skin. He was even more terrifying than a prehistoric ferocious beast. Whoosh! His body suddenly flew out on the spot like a cannonball and fiercely crashed into the wall on the ground, creating a huge crack. With his body as the center, it was like a dense spider web that spread in all directions, and below his body, the ground was smashed into an unfathomable ravine. Immediately afterward, another sword light fell from the sky, directly nailing him to the ground on the spot. And all this happened too fast, almost in the blink of an eye. That person had already been tortured to death by Yi Shiwen, completely not a match for Yi Shiwen. The only remaining person also seemed to be a bit dumbfounded, almost in a short time. How could there be only this little bit left? At this time, he almost regretted coming to provoke Yi Shiwen this time. Yi Shiwen was much more tyrannical than he had imagined. He was no longer the person who had just entered the third heavenly layer of celestial realm. At this time, he had almost climbed to the peak of the third heavenly layer of celestial realm. Whoosh! His vision blurred, and Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of him, almost only 3 inches in front of him. His big hand grabbed toward the void. An endless sword chi condensed in his hand into a treasure sword. Poochie! The treasure sword directly stabbed into his chest, and then suddenly exploded. His whole body turned into a cloud of blood mist, directly exploding. Yi Shiwen, you actually dared. Beishan Ju's furious roar came from the side. Yi Shiwen had actually slaughtered all the elites under him. Even for a peerless genius like him, it had taken him a lot of effort to recruit these people. These people were going to be important to him in the future. No matter what he wanted to do, they were going to be the backbone of his strength. But now, they had died tragically at Yi Shiwen's hands. How could he not be furious? Moreover, he had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen just now, and now the time was too short. Even if all his subordinates had died tragically, it would only buy him time to recover. Next, it's your turn. Yi Shiwen turned his gaze to North Mountain Ju. How can he be so powerful? North Mountain Ju secretly complained in his heart. There's no other way. I'll go all out. He had never thought that a person could be so powerful, but now that things had come to this, what other choice did he have? He could only brace himself and fight. He let out a loud roar, and a treasure sword condensed from sword intent condensed in his hand. His whole body erupted with destructive power, and his 7-colored treasure robe also bloomed with boundless 7-colored light at this moment. Together with the astonishing sword aura, it swept out and swept towards Yi Shiwen. North Mountain Ju, who had recovered to his peak, cut through the air with his sword, and it was terrifying. Many experts who were watching from afar at this moment had their expressions change greatly. They thought for a moment, if they were in Yi Shiwen's shoes, how terrifying would it be to face such a terrifying North Mountain Ju? Many people didn't even dare to think about it, because they would be killed on the spot. However, even such a powerful North Mountain Ju, who had sealed his cultivation, could be said to be almost unable to fight back when facing Yi Shiwen at this moment. Yi Shiwen's big hand grabbed towards the void, and the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron immediately appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. Blue veins popped up on Yi Shiwen's hand, and he suddenly smashed the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron, smashing it down towards the sword aura. Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded, and the sword aura collided with the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron, causing an unimaginable shock wave, like a raging wave sweeping out. Heaven's such a strong power. Is this the power that a 6th-level Celestial Realm expert should have? An ordinary 6th-level Celestial Realm expert can't even withstand a single blow in front of such power. Heaven's such a powerful shock wave. Even my divine thoughts are being disrupted. Many people in the surroundings were roaring, but it was useless. They couldn't get close at all. They were shocked and shocked. That boundless shock wave covered their divine thoughts, making it impossible for them to see what was happening. In an instant, the smoke and dust dispersed, and everyone who was attacking discovered that Yi Shiwen was like a king lifting a cauldron. He directly lifted the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron, as if he was swinging a small mountain. Again and again, North Mountain Ju's defenses were smashed, and North Mountain Ju was utterly defeated. There was no way for him to organize any more defenses. It was a complete suppression. It was completely unlike what everyone had guessed just now. It would be a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. Ah! A scream rang out, and they saw that Yi Shiwen had already appeared in front of North Mountain Ju at some point in time. His big hand actually directly grabbed the 7-colored godly robe, and on the spot, the 7-colored godly robe was directly peeled off from North Mountain Ju's body bit by bit. Beishan Budwan let out a blood-curdling scream. This 7-colored godly robe was a magic weapon that he had refined for a long time. It could even be said that it had become one with his flesh and blood, and was a part of his body. Now that it had been forcibly pulled out by Yi Shiwen, it was as if a part of his body had been stripped away from him. For him, it was extremely painful. Not only him, But even the onlookers were about to faint. He actually wanted to snatch the seven-colored godly robe. It was more than just audacious. At this time, some people remembered the rumors that they had heard before. This Yi Shiwen had not only snatched the seven-colored godly robe, but he had also snatched the fake Sun King's sword of the Sun Royal clan. Savage, too savage. Chapter 1535. In their eyes, it was a matter of course for the strong to bully the weak. It was common for those with higher cultivation levels to crush those with lower cultivation levels. But have you ever seen someone with a lower cultivation level bully someone with a higher cultivation level? Have you ever seen the weak crush the strong? That was why they felt that Yi Shiwen was so ferocious. He had destroyed their worldview, destroyed their outlook on life, and distorted their values. How is this possible? A peak sixth sky of the heaven realm, and an expert who had sealed his own cultivation, was easily defeated by a warrior at the third sky of the heaven realm. This was simply too unbelievable. At this time, an old antique who had sealed his own cultivation said in disbelief, "Even if North Mountain Jew sealed his own cultivation, his strength is still above mine. Even if he encountered a warrior at the seventh sky of the heaven realm, he could still escape unscathed. How could he be defeated so easily? Could it be that Yi Shiwen is even stronger than a warrior at the seventh sky of the heaven realm? This is too terrifying. I want to put this Yi Shiwen on the list of people who cannot be provoked. He is already so terrifying now. In the future, I'm afraid I won't even have the qualifications to look up to him. The Yi clan first had that son of God. Then, I heard that someone was the reincarnation of an ancient goddess. Now, this Yi Shiwen has appeared out of nowhere. He is so amazing. Could it be that his luck suddenly exploded? Otherwise, how could there be so many geniuses appearing? The colorful robe in Yi Shiwen's hand constantly emitted colorful rays of light, attacking Yi Shiwen, wanting to escape from his hands. Although this seven-color treasure robe was a defense-oriented magic tool, it didn't mean that it didn't have any offensive power. The endless rays of light condensed into a seven-colored treasure sword in the sky and attacked Yi Shiwen. If it was an ordinary warrior at the third sky of the heaven realm, he would probably be chopped into meat paste by these rays of light. After all, it was a top-level magic tool of heaven level. Even if it was not an offensive magic tool, it could not be underestimated. Unfortunately, they had encountered Yi Shiwen. These attacks were blocked 3 inches away from Yi Shiwen's body. They were blocked by a wall of golden airwaves. Looking from afar, it seemed as if Yi Shiwen was wrapped in a layer of golden lacquer. He looked like a golden statue, a statue of a god, incomparably majestic. Yi Shiwen poured his real elemental energy into the seven-colored treasure robe in a steady stream. He kept seizing the control of the seven-colored treasure robe. He wanted to erase Beishan Ju's soul from it. This was the first step if he wanted to completely control the seven-colored robe. It was also the most important step. Only by completely wiping away Northmont Ju's soul would he have a chance of refining the robe. At the same time, Beishan Ju had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen. Then, Yi Shiwen had snatched away his seven-colored treasured robe and forcefully stripped it from his body. Beishan Ju could be said to be on the verge of death. He had been severely injured, and his vitality had been damaged. Even if he could escape death, he would probably need to recuperate for a long time. When Northern Mountain Ju looked at Yi Shiwen again, there was no longer the disdain and contempt in his eyes. There was only fear in his eyes. He couldn't believe that Yi Shiwen could actually be so strong. At this time, it was meaningless to talk about how things were outside. They were not outside now. In front of Yi Shiwen, he was practically powerless to fight back. Jia Gujingshuo, are you going to continue watching and not make a move? Beishan Ju roared. His eyes suddenly became fierce, and his tone was also full of hatred. Although he had been beaten so miserably by Yi Shiwen, he was already afraid of Yi Shiwen. At this time, he didn't dare to look for trouble with Yi Shiwen. However, he hated Jia Gujingshuo, who was almost as strong as him, but was currently unharmed. This was the common problem of all intelligent creatures. They would implicate others for their own mistakes. His words shocked everyone. What? There was still someone lying in ambush in the surroundings. Everyone's soul instantly spread out like a radar, searching in all directions. Yi Shiwen, who was forcibly removing Beishan Ju's soul from the seven-colored treasured robe, finally reacted at this time. He couldn't help but feel his heart tighten. He didn't expect that there would be someone lying in ambush nearby. If it was any other time, he might not have been so careless. His attention was attracted by Beishan Ju just now. He thought that with the pride of a person like Beishan Ju, he wouldn't choose to join forces with others. Only now did he realize that he was wrong. And he was very wrong. Jiagu Jingshua actually came with him. Although the Alliance of 100 Races was known as one race, everyone knew that they belonged to different races. The internal situation was even more chaotic than the human race. Ever since the royal family disappeared, the 10 royal families of the Alliance began to take turns to rule. The relationship between them was naturally not very good. It was even more despicable than the competition between the major forces of the human race. Therefore, he didn't expect them to join forces. Since you're here, then come out. At this time, Yi Shiwen couldn't care less about refining the seven-colored treasured robe. He quickly kept the seven-colored treasured robe. Suddenly, he felt a violent fluctuation between the heavens and the earth. Then, he felt a strong pressure acting on his body. There was a formation. He suddenly woke up with a start. Almost at the same time, 10 figures surrounded him from all directions. Up, down, left, right, east, west, north, and south. They each occupied a position, and a faintly discernible formation was set up by them. Yi Shiwen was completely surrounded from top to bottom like a huge cage. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt as if he had entered a quagmire. Even his movements were no longer as agile. He felt as if he had stepped into the wrong place and entered a swamp. He was sinking deeper and deeper, unable to extricate himself. This was a formation that was specially set up for him. He immediately reacted. At the same time, Jiagu Jingshua's figure slowly appeared in the void. He stood in the void with his hands behind his back and looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. It was as if a god was looking up at all the ants in this world. Yi Shiwen, you're very fast. In order to deal with you, I've been scheming. Now, you have no chance of winning. Even if you're a ray of light, you'll have to slow down after entering my mud algae formation. Jiagu Jingshua said. Now, as long as you surrender and become my follower in the future, I can let you go. I can also reward you with the seven-colored treasured robe. I won't take it back. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This Jiagu Jingshua was not an ordinary person. Under Yi Shiwen's attack, just now, Beishan Ju was utterly defeated. He wasn't Yi Shiwen's match at all. And now, this Jiagu Jingshua actually dared to ask Yi Shiwen to surrender and become his follower. This was a huge move, and his ambition was terrifying. Moreover, in order to make Yi Shiwen surrender, he was even willing to reward Yi Shiwen with the seven-colored treasured robe. This was really generous. The seven-colored treasured robe. Even a Heaven Realm expert would covet it. Unlike everyone's shock, Beishan Ju was so angry that he was about to explode. F*CK. That seven-colored treasured robe belongs to me. It belongs to me. You actually used my thing to do a favor. He was about to explode from anger. Bastard. Jiagu Jingshua, what are you doing? This seven-colored treasured robe is the heirloom of our Beishan clan. Do you want to get a share of it? Beishan Ju roared. Shut up. Jiagu Jingshua looked at him coldly. Beishan Ju, who was severely injured and had his seven-colored treasured robe taken away, was not worthy of his attention at all. A defeated general was not brave at all. From the moment he lost miserably to Yi Shiwen, he was no longer worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as him. The two of them were not considered close friends. If it wasn't for Yi Shiwen, they wouldn't have come together at all. Beishan Ju was extremely angry, but he had no other choice. At this time, he had lost all his subordinates, and even he had been severely injured by Yi Shiwen. In front of Jiagu Jingshua, he had no confidence to say anything. He could only glare at Jiagu Jingshua. However, Jiagu Jingshua was completely indifferent and directly ignored him. But I have to take back the yin-yang life and death illustration from your body. That's not something you can have. Jia Gu Jingshua said. Yi Xuan laughed. He was so angry that he laughed. This Jia Gu Jingshua was really dreaming. Whether it was the yin-yang life and death illustration or the seven-colored treasured robe, they weren't his. However, he seemed to treat them as his own. He used the seven-colored treasured robe to exchange for the yin-yang life and death illustration. Moreover, he said it as if it was a matter of course. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it at all. I think you're wrong. This seven-colored treasured robe is my spoil of war, not yours. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. There's no difference. As long as I want it, it will be my spoil of war. Jia Gu Jingshua said indifferently. He looked at Yi Shiwen, who was trapped in the formation, and was confident of his victory. As long as you are willing to surrender to me, I will not care about the matter of you killing my cousin. I will even help you kill many powerful opponents and become the Yi family's master. I will also be conferred the title of Marquis among the humans. To tell you the truth, the reason why we can find you this time is thanks to your Yi family's Baishan's notification. Otherwise, how would we know that you would come? He didn't know that Yi Shiwen's arrival was not because of Yi Kuang's notification. He had already left the Yi family with Feng Qi and came to this powerhouse's cave residence. I'm afraid you are in a precarious situation in the Yi family now. However, as long as you are willing to surrender to me, everything will be different. With our Jiagu clan as your backing, Yi Qiong and Yi Kuang will not be able to withstand a single blow. We will help you become the Yi family's master. Chapter 1536. Yi Shiwen thought to himself. He was shocked. He did not expect that the reason why these two people came to look for trouble was because of Yi Kuang. Although he had enmity with these two clans, it was really not worth it to specially send people to deal with him. Moreover, the two clans had joined forces. Now he finally knew that Yi Kuang was behind this. He secretly remembered Yi Kuang's name in his heart. He would teach him a lesson sooner or later. I'm afraid that you are now in a precarious situation in the Yi family. However, as long as you are willing to rely on me, everything will be different. With our Jiagu clan as your backing, Yi Qiong and Yi Kuang will not be able to withstand a single blow. We will help you all the way to become the master of the Yi family. Jigu Jingshua said very confidently. F*CK. Another lunatic. Yi Shiwen said a little speechlessly. Yi Qiong? Yi Kuang is not even able to withstand a single blow. Can you defeat Yi Kuang? Before you talk big, please weigh your own strength first. Yi Shiwen looked at Jiagu Jingshua speechlessly. He was 100% a lunatic. Otherwise, he would be an arrogant person. If he really had such a plan and said it in public, if he was not a lunatic, then what was a lunatic? Moreover, although Yi Shiwen had never seen Yi Kuang, he was very clear about Yi Qiong's strength. Even he was suppressed by Yi Kuang. Although this Zhou Jingshua was powerful, it was not easy to say whether he was Yi Kuang's opponent, let alone killing Yi Shiwen so easily. It was impossible at first glance. It seems that you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Zhegu Jingshua looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, You are not qualified to make me shed a tear. Yi Shiwen's eyes were cold, and the aura on his body began to boil little by little. I think you are courting death. You don't have that kind of speed. I want to see how you, a mere third level of celestial realm, can be my opponent. Jigu Jingshua did not hide the murderous intention on his body. In his opinion, it should have been a sure thing to force Yi Shiwen to surrender. Who knew that Yi Shiwen wouldn't be moved by force or persuasion? He didn't even want to surrender. He immediately made a move. His big hand instantly stretched out, aiming straight for Yi Shiwen's head. The big hand instantly grabbed, wanting to twist Yi Shiwen's head off on the spot. He was absolutely conceited about his own strength. A third heavenly layer of celestial being realm warrior. If not for that elusive speed, he would not have paid any attention to him at all. The terrifying strength of the peak of the sixth heaven of the heaven tier was displayed without restraint. Compared to Beishan Ju just now, he was even slightly stronger. Although he had yet to recover to his peak state and had yet to release his cultivation at his peak state was already enough to show some clues. Yi Shiwen pointed his finger, and the entire sky shook crazily. The shocking sky style pierced through the vast sky and fiercely collided with that big hand. Boom! There was a huge explosion, and that big handprint was actually shattered on the spot by Yi Shiwen. I'll let you see what else I have. Yi Shiwen rushed out from the aftermath of the explosion. Golden divinity covered his whole body, as if he was bathed in the blood of God, and his blood surged. He held a long sword condensed from sword aura and pointed it to the sky. Using sword principle as the foundation, he broke through the sky, and a huge light swept out, slashing towards Zhegu Jingshi. "You're courting death," Zhegu said coldly, and there was a hint of brilliance in his eyes. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen would not be able to dodge it, but who knew that Yi Shiwen would break it on the spot? At the same time, his feet did not slow down at all. In a split second, like a flame, he avoided Yi Shiwen's sword that was mixed with endless sword principle law. Netherworld, Ghost Flame, Divine Technique. Yi Shiwen's vision suddenly blurred, and he immediately thought of this name. He had once fought with Zhegu Jinghao, and at that time, Zhegu Jinghao used this technique, Netherworld Ghost Flame Divine Technique. Zhegu Jinghua's speed was extremely fast, as if he had turned into a flame and teleported in an instant. Compared to him, Zhegu Jinghao's Netherworld Ghost Flame Divine Technique was far inferior. He knew very well that although he walked the path of great power, the speed of the movement technique derived from the demon wings was definitely not slow. Since Zhegu Jinghua was able to easily dodge it, it could be seen that his Netherworld Ghost Flame Divine Technique had been cultivated to a certain level. At this moment, a cluster of grayish-white flames appeared in the sky. Zhegu Jinghua's figure appeared directly behind Yi Shiwen. The killing intent in his eyes deepened, and countless flames were burning faintly on his body. Then, these flames condensed into a huge flaming hand. It directly broke through the sky and fiercely grabbed Yi Shiwen's descendant, wanting to grab him to death in one go. His speed was extremely fast, but how could Yi Shiwen's speed be ordinary? In addition, Yi Shiwen was already on guard when he saw the flame. He immediately turned around, and an amazing sword light sprinkled out and directly slashed towards the big hand made of willow, the wisp. Zhegu Jinghua did not hesitate even though he missed his attack. The aura on his body gradually swept up, and his originally black hair began to gradually turn grayish-white like the Netherworld Ghost Flame. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. Standing in midair, his body was tall and straight like a ghost god. He looked at Yi Shiwen coldly, full of confidence. He did not take Yi Shiwen's threats seriously at all. "That's all. I don't care what happens outside, but your mistake is to provoke me here." Yi Shiwen looked at Zhegu Jinghua and said. Zhegu Jinghua did not say anything. His figure instantly flew out like a flame, burning in the sky. Wherever he passed, the sky seemed to collapse. Countless air was burned through. Without the reflection of light in the air, the entire sky was dark, as if the entire void had collapsed. The scene was extremely terrifying. His speed was extremely fast. Like a flame, he swept through the void and instantly pounced in front of Yi Shiwen. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist. On his fist, countless ghost flames were entangled, and he blasted it out directly. The fist wind whistled out and expanded in the sky. It was like a huge malicious ghost that opened its bloody mouth. Even the sky was about to be bitten through, and it pounced on Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. His hand began to move. It seemed slow, but it was actually fast. In an instant, he had already moved, and he pointed a finger, imprisoning the sky. Suddenly, the surrounding space of this huge, malicious ghost seemed to be imprisoned in an instant. It was like a cage, making it unable to move at all. Then, an unparalleled, terrifying force directly fell on this malicious ghost through this cage. Ah! This malicious ghost immediately screamed and turned into a cloud of green smoke. It was broken by Yi Shiwen's finger. Boom! As if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking, the golden and black energy of the malicious ghost that was broken was violet. It surged in all directions like a tide. The fresh air that had just been burned was all annihilated and collapsed in an instant. The collision this time was extremely powerful. The collision between the two sides was like an attack at the end of the world. Jegu Jingshou looked at Yi Shiwen with a complicated look in his eyes. Although Yi Shiwen's speed was greatly restrained and weakened in this mud algae array, it was still very fast. Yi Shiwen was not inferior to him. Although Yi Shiwen could no longer use speed to crush him, Jegu Jingshua's speed was also unable to suppress Yi Shiwen in this situation. At this time, he finally understood why Beishan Ju was beaten by Yi Shiwen previously. It was not that Beishan Ju was not strong enough, but Yi Shiwen was too strong. Especially when Yi Shiwen's speed was raised to the extreme, it was even more difficult to deal with. As the saying goes, the authorities see clearly, while the bystanders are confused. After facing Yi Shiwen, he could have a fundamental understanding of Yi Shiwen's speed. His movement technique was already extremely strong, but in the face of Yi Shiwen, it seemed that he was still so vulnerable. Although he had a lot of thoughts in his mind, his hands did not slow down at all. Another punch was thrown out. Countless grayish-white flames began to burn on his fist. Everywhere the fist force passed, everything turned into a sea of ghostly fire. It was extremely dazzling. Boom! The endless ghost fire was like an energy tide that filled the sky, blasting towards Yi Shiwen. Sky-shaking style, Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and pointed his finger. It was like the finger of God. It pierced through the vast sky and met that fist head-on. Boom! Another astonishing collision occurred. The grayish-white flame was mixed with endless fist strength, and Yi Shiwen's golden aura was exuding a fierce aura. Two extremely terrifying forces rose to the sky, just like a vast sea of raging tides, and crazily dispersed in all directions. The surrounding experts who were faintly watching were all horrified, unable to believe that this was actually a collision between two sixth heaven of the heaven realm. In many people's eyes, even if it was a collision between seventh heaven of the heaven realm, it was nothing more than this. How is this possible? Am I seeing things? Such a battle is so tyrannical that it can scare people to death. These two people are so strong, especially Yi Shiwen. As long as he doesn't die prematurely in the future, his future achievements are simply limitless. What kind of physique does Yi Shiwen have? Jegu Jingshua's netherworld ghost body is famous for its tyrannical physique. Yi Shiwen can actually compete with him at a level lower than him by 3 levels. His physique is so strong. Most people were extremely amazed. It seemed that every time they discovered a little bit of Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength, they would be amazed. This was also because in terms of fame, Jegu Jingshua was far stronger than Yi Shiwen. Jegu Jingshua had been famous for hundreds of years. After all, Yi Shiwen only became a little famous in the past 2 years. People had studied Jegu Jingshua very deeply, but they were relatively ignorant about Yi Shiwen, so they were so amazed. Chapter 1537. There was a fatal gap between the popularity of the two sides. Once the masters of various clans and forces became famous, they would naturally be studied in all aspects. The information would also be collected. The longer time passed, the more complete the various information would be. Now, Yi Shiwen was like a thorn that suddenly appeared. In fact, there was very little information. Everyone's understanding of him was also very limited. In the field, the battle between the two became more and more intense. At this time, Yi Shiwen had no way out. Do I have to be his slave if I lose? That was absolutely unacceptable to Yi Shiwen. On the other hand, Jegu Jingshua had no other way out. He had to kill Yi Shiwen. Otherwise, he would lose all his face this time. The battle scene between the two sides was very terrifying. Both of them had used all their strength. The aftermath of a casual attack could completely collapse the space. This Shin method was very effective. It was as if Yi Shiwen had sunk into the mud. His speed had obviously dropped by a large margin, and he no longer had that kind of incomparably shocking speed from a moment ago. But even so, his offensive power was still as heavy as a mountain. It was as if a titan had pierced through the sky, and it was extremely terrifying. Even with the terrifying power that could uproot a mountain, he could fight evenly with Jiegu Jingshuo. He was not inferior to Jiegu Jingshuo's powerful strength. After a long time, Jiegu Jingshuo finally became impatient. He couldn't take down Yi Shiwen for a long time. The qi in his body was also consumed at a very alarming rate. He couldn't compare with Yi Shiwen. He had integrated the Star Beast bloodline. His qi was more than 10 times, or even dozens of times more than ordinary people. In addition, he had the Phoenix regeneration technique that could continuously restore qi. Hence, he was still alive and kicking now. There was no sign of exhaustion due to excessive qi consumption. Jiegu Jingshuo let out a long roar. His hair, which had turned gray, burned like a flame. It was as if he had become a flaming man. The flames burned through the sky. He suddenly blasted out a punch. The fist pressure directly tore the sky, and the flames shook for hundreds of miles. Not far away, many people who were close had to move away to avoid being burned to death by this flame. His punch seemed as if it would pierce through the vault of heaven. It came crashing down towards Yi Shiwen. It was incomparably violent. The air around Yi Shiwen's body was silently annihilated. The scene was extremely horrifying. Yi Shiwen pointed his finger and used the shocking heaven form. A huge shock wave rushed into the fiery fist energy along with an astonishing fluctuation and started to shake and dissolve the fiery fist energy bit by bit. Boom! Two terrifying forces collided in the void, creating an unimaginable shockwave. In fact, Yi Shiwen had the upper hand in this battle. "Let me see what other tricks you have up your sleeve," Yi Shiwen said. The faces of the experts of the Jiegu clan, who were at the 4th, 5th, and even 6th heavens of the heaven realm, who were arranging the formation, were pale. To maintain this formation, they had to consume a massive amount of real elemental energy. For them, it was equivalent to using their own real elemental energy to contend with Yi Shiwen. It was an endless process. Yi Shiwen was having a hard time. In the formation, he was held back by an unknown force. He could not move freely, but they were not much better. Yi Shiwen was like a behemoth. Wherever he went, he would make a mess. They had to bear huge pressure. If Jiegu Jingshuo did not hold Yi Shiwen back, their formation would have been broken by Yi Shiwen long ago. According to this trend, they would collapse before Yi Shiwen sooner or later. The recovery speed of Yi Shiwen's Phoenix regeneration technique was too fast. Hence, whether it was Jiegu Jingshuo or the experts of the Jiegu clan, they were a little tired. However, Yi Shiwen was still full of vigor. There was no doubt who would be able to drag the battle to death. Jiegu Jingshuo's eyes flickered continuously. He knew very well how unfavorable the situation would be for him if this continued. However, he had no other way. The only way was to kill Yi Shiwen as soon as possible. He did not want to fall into the path of no return of competing with him. Thinking of this, Jiegu Jinghao let out a long roar. The qi on his body surged crazily, and countless qi behind him turned into netherworld flames. In these netherworld flames, the howls of countless vengeful spirits could be heard. These vengeful spirits were condensed by a powerful force into a huge figure wearing an emperor's robe, standing above everyone. Emperor of the Underworld. This was an emperor of the Underworld. It was just that at this time, this emperor's face showed a cold and ferocious expression. It was Jiegu Jingshuo. At this moment, the emperor of the Underworld seemed to want to turn everything he could see into his Underworld God Kingdom. An Underworld God staff appeared in his hand. As he waved it, endless divine light surged. In an instant, a terrifying torrent of divine light blasted towards Yi Shiwen on the spot, wanting to annihilate Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop. "I've seen this move before. It's useless to use the same move on me twice." Yi Shiwen was already prepared. Monstrous waves instantly rose in front of him. Endless golden waves instantly rose and blocked him behind. Boom! The divine light and the golden divinity waves collided fiercely, setting off monstrous waves that swept in all directions. At this time, Yi Shiwen stretched out his hands, and the golden divinity condensed on them. His hands suddenly tore apart the divine light on the spot. Huff, huff, huff. At this time, Jegu Jingshua's face was also pale. The attack just now had consumed too much qi in his body. Maintaining this emperor of the underworld was already a huge consumption, not to mention fighting. If he had not been forced to the extreme by Yi Shiwen, he would not have chosen this method at all. Do it! Suddenly, Jiagu Jingshua shouted towards the void. Yi Shiwen was shocked. Could there be another ambush? Immediately afterward, he suddenly felt a threatening chill sweeping over from behind. He struggled to turn around in the void, only to see a shocking ghost hand piercing through the void and grabbing towards Yi Shiwen fiercely. Damn it, there's still an ambush! Yi Shiwen cursed in his heart. He stepped on the ground, and his body moved horizontally almost instantly. And at this time, that ghost hand directly chased after Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if it would never give up. It carried a monstrous ghostly flame and rushed towards Yi Shiwen to grab him. It seemed as if it wanted to catch Yi Shiwen. Wherever the ghostly hand passed, the entire sky would shatter with a loud bang, and the fragments would start to burn fiercely. On the other side, the emperor of the underworld behind Jiagu Jingshua also moved. He waved the scepter in his hand, accompanied by the screams of countless ghosts. His Jin Yuan turned into endless pale flames and shot out, forming a huge torrent that blasted towards Yi Shiwen. It was a pincer attack. He must not let Yi Shiwen have any chance to fight back and kill him in one fell swoop. Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes and kept retreating to avoid the attack. Jiagu Jingshua had hidden himself really well. He did not intend to reveal himself at all just now. It was not until Yi Shiwen felt that he might not be able to hold on that he suddenly let the ambush attack, catching Yi Shiwen off guard. Boom! That inexhaustible pale ghost flame fiercely smashed into Yi Shiwen's body, and the huge force directly blasted Yi Shiwen away. Yi Shiwen staggered, and his body seemed to be attached to the pale ghost flame, which was constantly burning him. Yi Shiwen's expression showed a bit of pain. Yi Shiwen's body was burning fiercely, as if he was about to be burned and disintegrated on the spot. That ghostly hand directly grabbed Yi Shiwen's neck, intending to twist and break him. However, at this moment, Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly opened. The golden divinity on his body instantly surged out like a heavy rain, instantly extinguishing the endless ghost flame on his body. Pa! His palm suddenly slapped out and collided with the ghost flame with the endless pale ghost flame on the spot. Boom! There was a loud collision. Yi Shiwen took a few steps back in succession, and his face was a little pale. In order to expel the ghost flame, just now, the qi in his body was consumed a lot in an instant. Even his tyrant body was burned when facing this strange ghost flame. In addition, the Phoenix regeneration technique was used for recovery. Just this exchange alone consumed more qi than before. And at this time, the owner of the ghostly hand finally appeared. It should be said that this was not a human at all, but a ferocious ghost with a green face and fangs, extremely ferocious. His body carried a monstrous ferocious aura, and it was unknown how many vengeful spirits were howling and howling within his body. It was unknown how many similar ghosts this malicious ghost had fed to grow to such a shocking degree. Yi Shiwen, today is the day of your death. You can't escape no matter what. In order to kill you, I have been scheming. In this case, even if you die, you should die in peace. Jiagu Jingshua said with a laugh. Yi Shiwen, today is the day of your death. If you want to die, go ahead and die. I have no intention of dying. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes and said coldly, You're still stubborn even when you're about to die. Jiagu Jingshua said with a sneer. Under his control, the emperor of the underworld behind him opened its big hand on the spot. Its palm was like a mountain, and it slapped towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! The big hand directly slapped a big pit on the ground. At the critical moment, Yi Shiwen directly moved horizontally to avoid this big hand. Yi Shiwen's figure directly appeared in midair and escaped the calamity. But at this time, he suddenly felt a burst of cold air behind him, and an astonishing attack swept towards him from behind. Chapter 1538. Behind him, the ghostly hand traversed the vast sky, grabbing towards the back of Yi Shiwen's head. It was fast and urgent. The ghostly flames burned the void, and the old ghost had already shuttled behind Yi Shiwen in an instant. Zhegu Jingshua had kept this old ghost in captivity for a long time. Both sides could be said to have a tacit understanding. At that moment, he directly attacked. The timing of the attack was perfect. It was as if the two of them had agreed on it, and Yi Shiwen was also cooperating with them. Seeing that the ghost hand was about to grab Yi Shiwen suddenly moved. His body moved in a strange posture and avoided the ghost hand. Yi Shiwen turned around. He could feel that the temperature on the left side was rising crazily, as if the entire void was burning, and the ghost hand reached out from his side. At the same time, Yi Shiwen raised his left hand directly. Golden divinity appeared on his hand and turned into a big golden hand. It directly grabbed the ghost hand on the spot. Crackle, crackle. A crackling sound was heard as the ghost flame melted. Although this ghost flame was very strange and terrifying, it was completely restrained by Yi Shiwen's divinity. It was a matter of extreme yang between the heavens and the earth. Boom! Yi Shiwen's entire arm was directly pinched off on the spot. Roar! The old ghost suddenly screamed. The wisp of golden divinity ran along his arm directly to his body, causing him to roll on the ground in pain. The ghost itself was an extremely mean creature, not to mention that it had encountered the divinity that had been tempered by Yi Shiwen. All of this happened so fast that everyone could hardly react. They had just seen Yi Shiwen retreat under Zhegu Jingshua's attack, and then they heard a scream. The old ghost's arm was directly pinched off by Yi Shiwen on the spot. The scene changed so fast that they had no time to react. What? How is it possible? Zhegu Jingshua's face was full of disbelief. The cooperation between him and the old ghost could be said to be flawless. How could it be broken? Moreover, shouldn't Yi Shiwen have difficulty even moving in his mud algae array? How could Yi Shiwen avoid his attack in such a short time? This is not scientific. This was the only thought left in his mind. This was illogical. I don't believe that you can hold on for much longer. Zhegu Jinghao was enraged and roared. The underworld emperor behind him smashed the staff in his hand down on the spot. It was an unimaginably brilliant staff technique. It had a suffocating feeling, as if it could destroy heaven and earth. The divine staff smashed down, releasing endless divine light. Each beam of divine light was like a sharp blade, directly shattering the void and severing the laws of space. Ordinary experts at the 6th level of the heaven tier would be directly killed by a single strike of the staff. It was not without reason that he had such arrogance. In terms of strength, he was even stronger than Beishanju. There was a metallic hum coming from the divine staff. It was a strange fluctuation, like the roar of a malicious spirit. It was terrifying and suffocating. Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate at all. He spread out his hands and welcomed this huge scepter. Boom! The palm and the scepter collided on the spot, and a terrifying collision sound was heard. The scepter was like a small mountain crashing down. If it hit a person's body, needless to say, that person would be smashed into meat paste on the spot. One could imagine how terrifying it was. But Yi Shiwen's hand was covered with divinity, and he directly met it. The flickering divine light on the scepter and the ghost flames that it spat were directly blocked by divinity, unable to directly affect Yi Shiwen's body. That shocking collision burst out countless divine light, but it couldn't shake Yi Shiwen's body at all. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen stood in the void, and the air under his feet completely collapsed as if there was an earthquake. It collapsed 3 times in a row, and only then did the terrifying power that poured down from the scepter completely dissipate. Yi Shiwen was barely able to stand firm. And at this time, Zhegu Jinghao also let out a loud roar. Underworld Emperor Kingdom. He suddenly infused all his qi into this Underworld Emperor, and endless ghost flames shot out in all directions. This Underworld Emperor, whose eyes were originally closed, opened his eyes again in an instant. The power of the staff had reached a terrifying level. The staff smashed down on the spot, Above the staff, endless ghostly flames formed a huge kingdom of the Emperor of the Underworld. It was a kingdom of the dead. Countless dead people were wailing and struggling in the kingdom. They wanted to escape, but it was useless. There was no way for them to escape. He wanted to use the power of a kingdom to crush and burn Yi Shiwen into pieces. Jiagu Jinghao could be said to be desperate. He must kill Yi Shiwen completely in this blow. In Yi Shiwen's body, countless strange phenomena rose. The 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron almost automatically protected his body. It expanded against the wind, growing like a small mountain, and then grew to a huge extent. Boom! There was a huge explosion, and a mushroom cloud rose from the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. The scepter of the Underworld Emperor directly exploded the atom, annihilating everything. Space-time laws, everything was completely burned in it. That terrifying power directly spread out like a wave. The 10 experts of the Jiagu clan, who were originally arranging the array around, seemed to have suffered a heavy blow at this time. They vomited blood on the spot, and the entire array was completely annihilated in such a terrifying collision. They were already showing faint signs of being unable to hold on. This time, they could not hold on anymore and completely collapsed on the spot. Yi Shiwen directly clasped his hands together, and an endless amount of Jin Yuan leapt out of his body and unceasingly replenished the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. A massive amount of Jin Yuan was drawn out of his body, and both sides were like desperate gamblers who were betting on their last gamble. The terrifying collisions continued, spreading out in all directions. In the distance, many experts who were paying attention to the battle on the other side of the battlefield turned pale when they saw this scene. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Their faces were filled with incomparable shock. Both sides of the battle had terrifying combat strength that far exceeded their imagination. Yi Shiwen was not feeling well. A huge amount of energy was being extracted crazily, but Jiagu Jinghao, who was opposite him, was even worse. There was still qi in Yi Shiwen's body that could be extracted, but he was only left with the power of desperate. He gritted his teeth, and his face was ashen. He was frantically holding on, competing with Yi Shiwen in the final consumption. Suddenly, another ghostly shadow appeared behind Yi Shiwen. It was an old ghost. He had finally expelled the raging divinity from his body. At this time, he could not wait to make a move. Now, both sides were like a scale. They were evenly matched. If any of them added a chip, it might cause a complete collapse. A cruel smile appeared on the old ghost's face. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was dead. Suddenly, his eyes widened. He was horrified to find that a terrifying and dangerous aura was rippling in Yi Shiwen's body, and then a huge Tao rune flew out. Fighting word! The fighting word flew in the air. Under Yi Shiwen's control, it instantly blasted towards the old ghost. The old ghost was caught off guard and was directly hit by the fighting word on the spot. The fighting word itself contained countless combat skills. Suddenly, the old ghost seemed to have suffered a heavy blow, and his whole body was blasted away on the spot. He crashed into the wall and blasted a huge hole in the wall. The fighting word followed him like a shadow and ruthlessly nailed the old ghost into the wall, making him unable to move. This is Pseudo-Tao Rune. One of the more knowledgeable old-timers recognized it right away. Many of them might have never possessed Pseudo-Tao runes, but this did not prevent them from recognizing Pseudo-Tao runes. Pseudo-Tao runes were the essence and essence that could only be condensed with the martial arts essence of the whole body before death. Ordinary people had only heard of it, but had never seen it. Even peerless geniuses like Yi Qiong and Tung Tontian fought to the death for a Pseudo-Tao rune. One could imagine how important and rare Pseudo-Tao runes were. Many people were suddenly tempted. If they could obtain a Pseudo-Tao rune, then the benefits to their future cultivation were self-evident. It could even be said that they had reached the sky in a single step. Although they wanted to obtain the Pseudo-Tao rune, they still held back the greed in their hearts. Here, Yi Shiwen was not to be trifled with. If it were outside, some of the old antiques among them who had sealed their cultivation might not take Yi Shiwen seriously. But now here, They had just seen with their own eyes how the two subordinates of North Mountain Dew died. In Yi Shiwen's hands, they were no better than ordinary 6th-level Celestial Realm warriors. If they wanted to snatch food from Yi Shiwen's hands, they had to be prepared to be chased by Yi Shiwen to death. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Nowadays, every young person had many fortuitous encounters. Many of them had only seen pseudo-Tao runes in ancient books, but Yi Shiwen actually possessed pseudo-Tao runes. The gap between the two sides was obvious at a glance. The old ghost was nailed to the wall by Yi Shiwen's fighting character. It kept screaming, but it had no way to escape. Jiagu Jingsha, it's your turn. Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his eyes and raised his hand to point out. Sky-shaking style. In an instant, the entire void was like boiling water, fluctuating violently. The vault of heaven was shaking. It was like a hot knife cutting through butter, directly bombarding the scepter on the spot. The scepter, which originally had infinite power, was broken on the spot by Yi Shiwen's finger. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.